Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Norbert calling from his artist residence in Norfolk, England. rather soggy Norfolk, England, as a matter of fact. I hope we don't sink into the earth during the course of this show. But anyway, I'm here as your host and moderator again. I will be doing not as much talking as usual, even though I was on one of the teams we'll be meeting tonight. So tonight's show is going to be a recap of the MCP WTC in 2023. And I'm here with two English teams. So you probably heard from the winning Swedish team on Monday on my show, and then on the Richmond Gaming show yesterday, which was Wednesday. Yep, Wednesday. And also on Richmond's show, he had the top placed England team. England Lions came in third. So go to his channel if you want to hear a bit from them. In the meantime, tonight we have two different teams. The first team I'll introduce went sixth place out of 32 places, and that's the London B team. So why don't we start with the captain, Angus? Say hello and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Angus. I was the captain of the London V team this time. We won Nations this year. Very proud of that. I actually have the award just that back there on my shelf. Yeah. Strongest Avenger in the chat as well, or in the Discord. I was playing Web Warriors. I actually wasn't captain at Nations, but I got the captain mantle this time. Yeah. Anything else? No.
So you played Web Warriors at Nations or at WTC or both?
I played Web Warriors at WTC. I played Malekith's Cabal at Nations.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll stick to Web Warriors. What did you say? Sorry, I missed it. Web Warriors and what else?
Malekith Cabal at Nations.
Okay, so but it was just Web Warriors at WTC.
Just Web Warriors at WTC.
Right on. Cool. All right, and then we'll switch over to Maria, also on the London B team.
Hey, yeah, I'm Maria. I was part of that Nations team as well, but I played Convocation then, and I played Convocation this time as well, because not many people know what wizards do. It's a surprise factor.
Especially when they're played as well as you play them. Great. And
well,
lastly, on the London B team is our friend Jamie.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Jamie. I play X-Men every day, all day. That's all I play. Can I quickly give the origin story of London B team? Because I think it's funny and I want to call Norbert out.
Okay, go for it. Yeah, sure.
So, the nations before this one, I wasn't even good enough to be considered to go along to that. And Angus was on the London team with, I think, Norbert, Pat, who else? I think AJ was there. Anyway, there was a good old like London, all the top 5 teams went. And then Nations came around this year, and they reformed the team and just forgot to invite Angus. And we were all laughing about, wouldn't it be funny if we went? And Angus showed up one day and was like, right, in our little group chat of like all the rejects that aren't good enough to go to these big tournaments. He was like, right, guys, we're making a team. Let's go. So he put together the 5 of us, and then we accidentally won. So yeah, the name London B team stuck because of the memes. So yeah, that was how it was. So it was a complete like grudge match / underdog story. And then we accidentally ended up at WTC, which was probably a mistake. But we did okay, actually. We came 6th. That's actually all right.
6 out of 32. Very good.
I'll take that.
Okay, cool. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Hang on. Oh, dear. Conor, you're getting all the attention now. There we are. Okay, the other team, as mentioned, went 6th. I actually was on this team as well, but I'm going to leave it to my teammates to do the talking. And we'll start with the captain, which is Conor.
We actually came 8th. They came 6th.
Oh.
Basically, our team was formed in another funny story where when Team England was originally putting together a list of players for WTC for 3 teams, they only had 12 applicants. Which included Steve and I, and they were struggling to find extra people. So Steve and I posted in our London Guild Ball chat asking if anyone wanted to come to WTC. And despite having played 0 games of MCP at that point, both JJ and Ricky signed up.
Yep.
So when our team was originally built, we had a total of only Norbert and I having played the game. And then basically we ended up forming as a team because I didn't get put on the England Lions because of it. Aaron and I both played Webs, and he was originally going to WTC.
Oh.
So then he basically said, if I'm not on the first team, I kind of want to be on with all my friends. And then we realized we were all non-English players, and so at this point, Norbert also asked he could hop on and join the Colonial team. And that's kind of how the second two England teams got formed. It ended up being all the non-English players banded together, and then all the whoever was left basically became the third team. Although then there were a bunch of drops and new people, so that all changed.
Right. So I'm of the originally of United States origin. Connor, you're from
Canada.
right now. We have a teammate who's not here, so you want to speak for Ricky? Where is he from?
Yeah, Ricky is from South Africa, so another colonial legacy of Great Britain.
Cool. And what factions were you playing?
So I was playing Web Warriors as always. Outside of Aaron, I've probably played about as much Webs as anyone. And I decided I'd been planning on playing pure Web Warriors, which I'd been running for ages. And then when the errata hit, my game plan on a lot of the really narrow crises got a lot worse because my plan was basically hide at the back and steal everything. And with Black Cat's change, that got worse. But with the buffs to Daredevil, he became a lot better. And I started messing around with Daredevil and Webs and quite liked him. And then ended up realizing I only needed to drop like 1 or 2 models to play a Defenders dual affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that would be my answer for the Fightier Crisis. And in the run up to WTC, I was playing quite a bit of Defenders to go to Webs.
Cool. All right, we'll get into a little bit of how we all prepared in a moment. But let's finish introducing the rest of the Reclaimed Colonials on the call. JJ, why don't you go next? Introduce yourself and what your original country was.
Yeah, so I'm JJ. I'm from Australia. Well, yeah, I grew up in Australia. Let's leave it at that. Been there long enough to get the accent. It's pretty much all you really want from Australia. That and survival. So, as Conor sort of mentioned, yeah, he basically, Stephen Conor reached out and sort of just went, "Do you want to come to WTC?" Been to a bunch of WTCs before. Went, "Yeah, that sounds great." I went, "What are we playing?" They said Marvel, so I bought some models. And started trying to figure out how 8-sided dice work in the miniatures game. So I was there playing Convocation, and that's kind of what I've been playing. So I think Maria and I, there were only 3 Convocation players. So you got 2/3 of them here. Again, bit of a surprise factor, good fun, tricksy wizards.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you confer much with Maria ahead of time, or was this your own build?
No, so obviously Maria and I know each other from Guild Ball, but I didn't want to bother her, especially so I just went on Longshanks, looked up her list, and started to copy some ideas. Played it horribly the first few times. I'm like, this Ebony Moor guy is rubbish. Then I realized I was using the non-errated card, and I'm like, that's why he's bad, because he's significantly better when he's got more dice. And yes, then just started basically playing around with it and figured out throwing stuff is fun.
Cool. All right. And lastly, we have Steve, also from the Reclaimed Colonials. Give us a little introduction and where you're from.
Well, hopefully the accent can tell I'm from Scotland, but I've been in England for 16 years. I think I was the second longest in England of our team, wasn't I? After Ricky.
Ricky, yeah.
Yeah. And I obviously then similarly hadn't played MCP until, I think I played 1 game until about April this year. And took the highly fulfilling all of my Scottish heritage and all of my Jewish heritage. I bought the cheapest affiliation box I could find, which is Black Order, and then worked out what to do with it. So that was how I sort of ran up to this. Yeah.
Right. Brilliant. All right, cool. So for the show tonight, we're going to do a little bit about how each of the teams prepared ahead of time. We'll then go through each of the 5 rounds to talk about some of the highlights, about what happened during those rounds, how things went down. And then we'll wrap up with a little bit of lessons learned from the event and what each team would like to pass on to anybody new to the WTC or considering to go, and what they would advise them about. So cool. Let us start with the London B team, actually. So why don't we start with Angus as the captain, but of course the teammates should chime in to help tell the story. But tell us a little bit about how you guys decided to communicate with one another, how you decided to choose the characters that you did, and also a little bit of any kind of preparatory work, like practice games, anything like that.
Oh, WhatsApp. It's all via WhatsApp. We've got we had so most of our documents were via like Google Sheets saved into WhatsApp. So it's like the banner, the specific like nuts and bolts of how we did it. Together and just popped them in there, and then highlighted any that we had crossovers on, and then sort of worked from there. So that was how the initial bubbles of everything started. I think I switched teams. Will switch teams, and Callum all switch teams during the process of the wind up, depending on the because obviously from the start of like deciding to go to WTC, there was the errata that came out a couple of weeks before the list deadline. Then we also had the new release box as well. Obviously that wasn't legal for WTC, but it was still something we considered. And until they made a ruling on that, we were like prepping here or there, trying to figure out if we were going to take them, trying to work that out. That was a bit of a minefield. I think all in all, I'm glad that wasn't in. Apart from anything, it wouldn't have been great for a lot of the countries that were just like that don't have as good delivery as we do in the UK.
Right.
But basically, I remember that there was some characters that the crossover is quite difficult on. Jamie and I, for example, crossed over on Ghost Spider quite a lot. I spent like 2 weeks begging him, being like, hey, do you really need her? Because I can't really play webs without Ghost Spider. She's like the one I need, and I ended up getting the team I wanted pretty much. You can.
How did that work though? Is
really...
it because you guys played some games with each other to try to figure out it was really a problem, and then the other person relinquished the character? No, Jamie says no. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, Angus, let me take this one, mate. There's a very clear divide in London B team on who the good players are and who the others aren't. So like, we had a for nations, right? We all met up, our character cards out on the table, and then like you basically made a case for which you wanted in your team. I'm lucky. The reason I love playing on London B team is I'm the only one that cares about mutants, so I just get all the mutants. No one really argues. But I was like, I quite like magic, and Maria snatched it out of my hand and was like, "That's mine." Thanks. And I don't get to argue because Maria's better than me. The same thing happened with Ghost Spider. It's like, yeah, Angus gets Ghost Spider. Okay, I'll take someone else. It's actually quite nice. It makes the team make it like really nice and simple. And then like Callum got Hellfire, and that's just nice because you go, okay, here's all the nice potatoes. There you go, you get all the good guys. So yeah, it worked out it was quite smooth for us, I think.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, there was one time where I had to pull captain because of the way that we weren't necessarily all together as close as like we had been for nations, like physically together in the same room as much. So for particularly for Will to do well, he needed to get I can't remember which character it was specifically. I think it was Ulik or something like that. And Callum had been practicing with him, and I had to just go in there and be like, look, just give him that. You can take this. And but aside from that, it was pretty smooth. The character pool is pretty deep, and I mean, Maria, I'll let you talk about yours, but I think from our actual character selection, we all quite divided up quite early into different areas. So even though there was a bit of switching over factions, we can make it work, I guess.
What do you think, Maria?
Yeah, I think it was the only time Callum didn't even ask me if he can have my Scarlet Witch. Jamie told him no before he even got there. But things like I used to have Hulk in my list, but he's only there for Sentinels, and no one plays Sentinels. And in a matching process that is WTC, even if they were, I could avoid them. So it was. I think we're all quite sensible and see the reason. If someone makes a good point for actually needing something for a strategy in the list, then we kind of brainstorm together to find an alternative.
Yeah. Did you
yeah.
this is a question to all of you. Did you find it actually fun and engaging and help kind of bring the group together to have that sequence of time in the WhatsApp channel?
Yeah.
I think this is the way MCP should be played. I think team events are the best. I'm not interested in going to any solo events after this. Because I liked it at Nations as well because it was more restrictive, right? You couldn't share tactics cards or crisis.
Right.
I loved that because you just saw weird teams show up and it was great. It was so much variation. So yeah, I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
Fighting for Brace was probably bigger than fighting for models.
Yeah, exactly.
Good point. Okay, we'll come back to you about practice and stuff. So have a think on like how you guys prepared in terms of playing games and things, and in particular the tournament you all came down to. But go ahead, Conor, kick us off for the Reclaimed Colonials, but then have the teammates chime in about the development process for our rosters.
Yeah, so I would say prior to the errata, 4 of the 5 of us had basically got our lists locked in like ages in advance. JJ and Ricky, because they just started, only owned one faction, so that made that really easy. I was obviously gonna play webs because that's basically all I play. I do own other stuff and play them occasionally, but I'm a webs player. And then Norbert has actually been like quite committed to criminals for the last few months, and was really enjoying them at a previous team event. And we realized between those 4 teams, there was actually pretty minimal crossover. I think there was really only like 1 or 2 models, because Norbert already had been not playing Black Cat because he's mostly playing Shadowlands. JG and I both wanted Wong, which we'll get back to. And basically, outside of Steve, it was all very simple. But Steve made a mess of everything because he was both playing Black Order, but then also decided he only really wanted 3 Black Order models, which became 4 when Cosmic Ghost Rider came.
4?
No, I know, but this was before
Yeah, don't
Cosmic.
do me down, Conor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 3,
and
fine,
then I was running all the good splashes, which obviously everyone else also needed in their own factions. So Steve ended up robbing Ricky blind and leaving him with very little of a Guardians team left, having taken CGR, Thanos, Andy, and Nebula off the Guardians. But basically,
I regret nothing. I regret nothing.
But then when the errata hit, it actually did quite a number to us. I don't think JJ's or Ricky's list changed that much, but both Norbert and I were pretty heavily affected.
Wait, what do you mean my list didn't change much?
Look, I was going to get to that.
I'm from the criminal colony, and you're the one that did the stealing.
Yeah, so basically, prior to WTC, I'd been running Wong and Web Warriors for a long time, and he'd been pretty central to the game plan. But I was thinking, like, okay, I can do without him. I'll play Toad, probably fine. But the more warm-up games I did, the more I was like, this kind of sucks not having Wong. My turn 1's pretty bad now. And then basically when the errata came, Norbert dropped his Cabal half of his list and went pure criminals again. And I basically tried to convince JJ to give up Wong for several weeks. And when he refused, I just took him anyway at the last minute, literally the night before.
You claimed you claimed that now you're dual affiliation.
I'm taking him. I don't care.
You're like, now that I'm dual affiliation and Defenders, Wong's affiliated with my list, so you don't get to claim affiliation with Convocation, and therefore you get to keep it. And I was like,
I would like to point out I did play him every single round at WTC, so it was a well worth steal. And basically the other big one
every single round at the WTC.
I regret. And the other big debate was basically Steve was quite happy with Black Order, and we both talked a lot about it and kind of agreed that like Black Order are kind of absurdly strong in a teams format, a lot better than they are in singles. But the big problem was to play the best Black Order, you're playing Thanos with Mind Space and Corvus Reality, and that makes your 15 really awkward. So we spent ages trying to figure out the 15 problem. Went to I think you were trying Weapon X and then Brotherhood at the warm-up event. And then after the errata, we went to Inhumans and you tested that out. And so we spent most of the time just debating 15. And how many times did you play 15 at WTC, Jay?
Never. the crucial thing to success. Didn't have to play Inhumans, which I realized after we locked lists, I think should have been X-Force as well. That's actually the obvious 15 flex from them, because basically the 15 flex in that is, what do I play Ghost Rider with? That's essentially the
And
'cause
it
you
couldn't
can't.
be Guardians because we had a Guardians player. Because it's
Yeah.
definitely Guardians. If
I mean,
that's,
I felt
if-
bad enough taking 3 models off Ricky, let alone taking his only faction. That would have been like, yeah, that would have been a
I
little
wouldn't have put it
harsh.
by you.
Yeah, I was tempted. I was definitely tempted.
All right, Angus, we were remiss actually. Why don't you mention the other 2 players' factions that came along?
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. So we had Callum on Brotherhood and Will on Malekith Cabal and Criminals. These 2 were actually the ones chopping and changing the most in the prep as well. Characters going backwards and forwards, stuff like that. Both of them did not do themselves enough justice for how good players they were. They were both like, no, I'm just here for fun. I'm just a seat filler. But no, they both did great when it came down to it. Will, as I'm sure we'll get into, did extremely well, and so did, and they both did really well. But yeah, that was Brotherhood and then Malekith Cabal were the 2 other players. But they were definitely also the ones that were most pushed out. As far as like Jamie mentioned, we were kind of just like ransacking characters off them when we wanted them. At least it felt a bit like that. But yeah, with the other 2.
All right, Jamie, then let's go into how you guys prepared in terms of playing games.
Playing games. We didn't play that many games together. Callum was like a real jet setter during that time. Maria's down in Brighton, and I get Angus beating me every day. So we didn't play that many games together. But we did a lot of practice on the pairing process. Do you want me to talk about that now or later?
Yeah, we should definitely talk about it now.
So we've got beef with the pairing process because, again, we were really happy with it at Nations, and Pat Dunford wasn't happy about it on his podcast. We think we won because of the pairing process. At Nations, I won't get into it, but basically, at Nations, you could put a player down and then force your opponent to pair into it, and then the rest of them, you can kind of force the matchups. So we always put Maria down because Wizards, and people get confused by Wizards, and Maria can beat anyone. So that was our pairing process for Nations, and it went really well. We genuinely think we won because of that. Genuinely, that's how we won, we think. So at WTC is obviously a lot different, and we were at the pub for about 2.5 hours, I think, after everyone had left, running practice, like proxy kind of pairings, and just couldn't figure it out. We couldn't figure out how to force matchups that we wanted, how to win the matchups, and we were really, really, really worried about it. We realized that it's more of a you have to avoid matchups, right, than kind of force the matchups that you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, we really struggled. We put a lot of time into that, and then Angus and Maria, you met up again, right, to go through it?
Yep. Just the day before we flew away. Yep.
Yeah.
So we were really scared about that. Yeah.
We had quite a holistic chat about it. I think one of the things that I'd like to mention is that we have a bit behemoth of a spreadsheet.
Do you have it still?
How comfortable we are? Yeah, I'm sure it's still on my Google Docs. But you'd think it'd be useful. A lot of time went into that spreadsheet. I spent several nights making sure all the information was in there, and a lot of us independently put into it. But as captain, I didn't look at it once.
Great.
Yeah,
That's
you're welcome, team.
fine. It's too light, is it? Yeah. Can't see
Basically,
reflection.
it was every team at WTC, all their rosters and all the players all linked, and then we each went through them all and gave them a traffic light system for how much we wanted to play against them. Every
How much
team.
we knew them, the team, and how much we would like the matchup or not.
Yeah.
As a
I
rag
want to know us. I want to know what you thought of us. Like, we should come on
Well,
to that. I'm very curious.
I played you,
Yeah,
so I was like, that's a red light. And I hate that guy. He smashed me.
I can
but
actually
as
get
a
it up
team,
if you
you're
want
a
to see.
faction, not my personality, Jamie. But faction, not personality.
Hey, I enjoyed getting smashed by you. That was a lot of fun, actually. But yeah, so we went proper in depth on that, and then didn't use it at all.
Yeah.
But we ended up having a bit of a on paper method. Angus, do you want to talk about that if you've got it?
Yeah.
Which
so
actually went quite well.
To be fair, the paper method kind of feeds off the discussion because we talked about the pairings so much. We talked about how to actually figure out how good people were, what were the actual signs that you were going to be in a favorable matchup or not. So we talked about that a ton beforehand. I came up with a system. It's super easy, but it's the matrix. So you can see along the top here, we have it's just each column is the opponent, and then you can see ticks and crosses, and then I've circled the ones that we actually got the pairings, and then I've either put a double, a W, or an L for win or loss, and then
So you
yeah,
did this on the day, basically, when you knew what you were being paired into?
yeah, we did this on the
Yeah.
day when we knew what we were paired into. So this just gave us like a good indication of like how people felt about the matchups. But as I'm still not convinced we did a good job of it, to be honest, because I think you can look at some of these, and this is a good example. You can see, I'm not sure how well this is showing up,
Yeah.
but we basically drew a bunch of neutral pairings and lost them, and then won the pairings that we thought were bad.
Yeah. If anything, I learned going to many years of WTC for War Machine is that in a situation where the two teams are pairing into each other, both of them walk away from it saying, "We won those pairings." So I'm not sure what's going on. Okay. But it works if it works. But you guys also went to the York Weekender in just a month or so before the WTC, and then you also came down to a WTC practice tournament that we ran in London, whereas the York Weekender maybe helped you. Let me restate this: the York Weekender took place literally the weekend of the list lock. So that was the last opportunity to practice before locking lists. And then 2 weeks later, we did a practice WTC tournament in London where you got to actually see the pairing process in motion. So tell me a little bit about how those two kind of events affected your team. Go ahead, Maria.
Do one of you? Yeah, Maria, do you want to go first?
Well, I didn't go to York, so I can talk about the practice event.
Yeah, sure. But you were locked in anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
you knew what you were going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I always play the same list anyway. But yeah, so I think because, as Jamie said in the beginning, at Nations we felt like we did the matching really, really well. We then went to the practice team tournament, mainly focused on understanding the matching process, and we lost all 3 rounds, which was not great. But it did teach us a lot about the pairing process and how we need to do things differently. And obviously, as Angus said, what looking at lists never takes player skill into account anyway, so you can win or lose a lot of favorable or not favorable matchups by facing someone either quite inexperienced or very experienced, especially experienced into the team you're playing. But we really learned a lot about how this pairing process works, that we cannot force matchups necessarily, then that Tan wants to be certain tables and how we can make him pick tables with lots of terrain to throw. So a lot of that. And we did talk after the event quite a lot about that as well. So that's why the spreadsheet Angus showed, usually people were allowed 1x saying, I really don't want to play against that team. But that's really all you can say.
Yeah. What about you, Jamie? What about the York Weekender and list lock?
Yeah, York Weekender was basically just, oh fuck, Ghost Rider. That was basically it. That was I think that's what everyone learned from that weekend, right? It was like, oh, the game's in a really good place now. Everyone's having fun. Daredevil's showing up. We're all having a great time, and Ghost Rider's ruining everyone's day. So that's all I really learned. So I played like probably 15 games against Ghost Rider between York and WTC, and faced him never. So that was worthwhile practice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Angus, how many last minute changes were made before that list lock the Sunday of the Weekender?
For me, there were a couple. So I didn't play him once, but I had Thanos in my list. He stayed in. I didn't change. I did well at the York Weekender. I went 5-1. Was it out of 5? Well, it was at 6, right? I lost once anyway. So I didn't actually change my list much, but it did really cement. I was like, oh, I definitely want to be playing Web Warriors for sure. For sure. Yeah. Which was nice. And I definitely wanted Squirrel Girl in. And actually, I'm glad she was there. Yeah. I regret having Thanos there, but I'm glad that the Squirrel Girl was in.
Yeah. If people are interested in all these rosters, they're all posted in Longshanks. So if you look up the Longshanks event, which is WTC or might be MCP WTC 2023, you can look at everybody's lists.
Oh, if I could add as well, I did actually make some changes add the York Weekender to my list, but it wasn't on characters. It was on Crisis. I picked Crisis. I could avoid going like massively pinned unless it was a really favorable map to 17 threat because of Guardians Thanos Cosmic Ghost Rider, because at 17 threat it's just horrible. I wanted to at least give myself a chance, so I've actually got slightly different extracts for that reason, so that if I
we
lost
discussed
Prio,
that a bit actually.
That's why that's the way it is. So
Good.
I think that was actually a really good move. But
Connor, I can't remember. Were you at the Weekender? I don't think so.
No, I wasn't, but I did talk to Angus about that because the week before WTC, after list lock, I had to play against Thanos CGR Star-Lord twice that week, and then we talked about it. I was like, kind of wish I'd thought of that. It's rough. It's real rough.
Well, it looks like I was the only one that I went to York Weekender, and I did horribly. I got completely smashed, and I was completely down on my list, and I was ready to just like switch factions entirely. But
that's a good point, actually. I want to mention that, right? Because I played you right before WTC, Norbert, and I was like, "Hey, man, you excited? Are you ready for WTC?" And you were like, "Fuck no." I've never seen you so down. Norbert gets salty, but this was like new levels of. You were just sad.
I was in the mines. It was because the changes. So people understand, I was doing really well with my roster. The September changes came in, which I'm totally cool with, but they completely rocked the approach that my roster was trying to take, and it wasn't going to be viable anymore. Yeah.
Did it right though?
Yeah, well, that's it. I made on the train ride home. A lot of the players that came with me talked me off the ledge. That was the first step in my recovery. And then when I got off the ledge, we started talking about some serious changes. And in the end, it was more of a change of Crisis and one character, and then it was fine. Actually, I don't know what happened. Anyway, so list lock for me was a torture because I had to get it all done on the train ride down and then send it over to Conor, who was desperately corralling us cats. So were there other changes before the deadline? I can't remember. Any of you guys make some last minute audibles?
There was one funny one. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, go, Jamie, go.
No, there was just a funny one where literally an hour before list lock, our Will, who's playing Malekith Crims, suddenly realized that, the Malekith nerf hurts, actually. I should go completely Inhumans Cosmic Ghost Rider, and there's no crossover with anyone else. And I was like, cool, do that. Let Angus know. And he just didn't reply. He still doesn't recheck his WhatsApp. He's like a Luddite. So we're like, do you want the best team in the game or not? And he didn't say anything. And then the next day he was like, oh, it's fine, I'll be all right. So I was stressing out about that, and he ended up going 5-0. It was fucking so annoying.
Yeah, he did. But so did Steve. Steve is on our team, and he went 5-0. And you had a comment to make about Listlock?
No, the only major dilemma I had obviously was giving up Underpants Magneto. That was my big dilemma, was giving up Magneto and his hot pink speedos for Inhumans who like, it's much harder to make Black Bolt wear bondage gear. Like, it was really, like, I really struggled to paint Black Bolt in his underpants compared to Magneto, and that was a big problem for me.
Yeah, as if there weren't enough problems getting Listlock done. You chose some clothing.
Oh yeah, it was huge.
Let's not ignore the actual list lock problem, Steve, which is that at the last minute he decided he didn't need Nebula because he was going to play Inhumans. And so I asked him like 3 times before submitting, like, you're sure you can give Nebula back to Ricky? You're sure you can? He's like, yeah. So I email it off. I steal Wong from JJ, as I said, mercilessly just taking him. But then also Steve just like is like, yeah, I've taken the others. Just like literally like was it even that night or was it the next day? Do you remember?
It was the next day when I was sober.
He was like, "Oh, this is awful. My list doesn't work at all anymore."
Totally wrecked it. Totally wrecked it.
So I literally sent a new spreadsheet to the WTC, being like, "We fucked up. This is the accurate spreadsheet."
Yeah.
And
no,
thankfully,
I literally woke up and went, "I can't play 18 threat. I can't play 18 threat anymore. That was a terrible idea." Like,
and I'm just sitting there being like, "God damn it, Steve."
So it was me in like Suicide Watch. It was Steve in a drunk tank somewhere. JJ
and I fighting for Wong.
Yeah.
It's kind of,
Literally, we're talking like 10 minutes before the list submission deadline. This is all happening still. It was a mess.
it was a mess. It was not ideal, but that's because we had a practice event, and then these guys are relatively new. Vodka Blitz
Oh,
asked a question.
The other thing is JJ and Ricky also submit lists with 9 tactics cards.
Oh.
So I had to fix that as well.
No,
I mean,
This is so
Look,
embarrassing.
Both
There
put the stone as one of the tactics cards.
no. I don't
Yeah.
link to characters.
I don't know how it happened because
It sounds like a
like your
problem on
list
your
you
side,
submit
Connor. If you map, it's
yeah,
all
your
good.
list you submit on Longshanks was fine. It was just the spreadsheet. So I just took your Longshanks
Yeah.
extra card.
At
I
least,
don't know what
at least
happened with
JJ
Ricky.
played the stone accurately, Connor. At least
Yeah, well, that's
JJ actually
true.
Well-
played the stone correctly. Like,
But the other thing with Ricky is I went back to be like, okay, JJ probably copied and pasted an old thing. I got the accurate one from Longshanks. I go to the last event. Ricky ran 9 tactics cards at his last 2 Longshanks events. Like,
So look, if you're
and yeah, do
watching
you want me
this,
to tell
and,
the Power Stone story?
if you're new to the WTC and are thinking of going, as you can see, it's a complete shambles, and you shouldn't be embarrassed or worried about anything.
I mean, look, to be fair, this was way better than the first Guild Ball WTC I went to, where I changed my faction to one I'd never played on the day of list lock.
Oh my god! Yeah,
Like,
classic.
and I couldn't get the whole faction painted in time, so instead of having whatever you'd have 12 models, I turned up with 6 and played that for the entire WTC.
Jamie, you had a comment? No. Okay. There was a question from Vodka Blitz. You guys were either not playing war games or playing Guild Ball. I don't think War Machine was in play. But anyway, the question is, did any of those games and the pairing process and the team events, those games, did they help prepare you for this one around?
I think so. I think like game of memory is like very strong. Just being able to look at a table, know how to like puzzle out a situation. And I think coming from a War Machine Guild Ball background, being very used to a clock and not feeling the pressure, knowing that time is a resource, not an enemy, like that sort of thing just puts you in a very good headspace. I mean, I think Maria and I were talking about this. I haven't been to many tournaments since my kids were born, and just getting back into it, I just feel like the muscle memory of not feeling the pressure of a tournament situation, having been to WTCs before, and just being able to look at a table and know inherently these distances work. This is statistically how this will play out. Know when you're taking risks. I think there's just a level of it's just a general skill set, right? Like just being able to compute your way through that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say with the pairing process in particular, I played at a couple of Malifaux ITCs because Guild Ball was only 3 players and a bit different. But with the Malifaux ITCs, a lot of it was whole faction, so there's a lot more you kind of have to guess. So what I kind of found is that a lot of the time what you'd be doing is literally when you're paired up, you would often just be like checking what that individual person had been playing in recent events.
Yep, sure.
And I found I was doing that a lot with this, where it was like we had a very, very basic, much more basic than these guys rubric of like how we felt generally about factions. But what I found doing the pairing process is a lot of it obviously came down to what the person had been playing and how they'd been doing with it. And that was kind of something I learned from the Malifaux one, and to a lesser extent from Guild Ball, is like you can't really, well, I didn't think you could until these guys talked about their spreadsheet that had every listed player at WTC, but we couldn't be bothered to try and figure out all the individual matchups prior. But once I got to the table, I was immediately in like, okay, we want this.
Yeah.
Let
me interrupt you, because I think a key moment for us as a team, this was after list lock and probably only a week before the WTC, we had a joint WhatsApp phone call, actually talking to people, and we walked through each, not players, each affiliation, and what we felt we could do with one affiliation or another, and we debated it quite a bit. And what was nice about that is I think, Connor, it seemed like it gave you a lot of holistic understanding of what could be possible or not, and that's when you made your spreadsheet for yourself only, with just us into various different affiliations as red, yellow, green.
Yeah, and I will say, like, one thing I didn't really the plan for our team was quite interesting because we had quite a large experience gap, as we discussed, between players. And also like some really delineated factions. So like I think Web Warriors are the best crises focused team in the game. And I think there are very, very few things outside of like CGR Guardians that outfight Black Order. So instead of what ended up happening is, instead of us kind of trying to get like a lot of people, like you guys talked about, getting everyone into a good matchup, the main priorities for us was get Steve into a match where he gets to fight anyone but Guardians. So we want Steve into a matchup where he's on like fighty crises. We wanted me in a matchup where I'm on like spread out and score crises. And then we basically want to get JJ and Norbert into whichever matchup we think is most winnable. So if there was like a team that, had one less experienced player or one faction we felt they were both advantaged to, dropping both of them and making sure one of them got that matchup was kind of our main priority. Because I basically felt like I could beat anyone in the tournament if I got my types of crises.
Yeah.
And I feel like Steve basically felt the same, minus Guardians.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing, is we basically just wrote Guardians as a loss regardless. So in our pairing process, we were just like, oh, someone's got CGR Thanos Guardians. That player's losing. We need to win 3 of the other 4 games.
Yeah.
And our priority was basically making sure that by getting the Guardians loss, we got better matchups elsewhere.
Right.
Because we did not feel good about that matchup for any of us.
No, and I think also with the plan being like, so essentially it was Connor and I had to win, and then we'd hope that one of Norbert and JJ and Ricky would win. But the principle was like basically one of you 3, which meant that neither Connor and I could ever play Guardians,
Right?
because we just get dunked, right? And like, because
and we were very close, because Steve went 5-0, and I had my last round was me against another 4-0 player, and was very tough, good game that I lost. But we almost did both go 5-0, so the plan was pretty solid. The last round was the only pairing process where I feel like we may have lost, but that was largely because, and we'll get to this with your guys round 1, the Italian team had some weird lists.
Yeah.
and
They
we're
were
good.
hard to predict what was going on
as
there.
well.
Very good.
But also, I think the other thing is just with the Thanos changes for me. Thanos is now better into that's Black Order is better into fighting teams and worse into scoring teams. Because like having Brace and having Sacrifice on Thanos into fighting teams is way better than having multiple portals. But if you have to play a scoring team, you really miss those multiple portals. So I think that was the other that we didn't take into account, but was actually like a ratchet on that faction during the tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, and interestingly, I actually built the faction to be able to play against fighting teams as well, which is why I had the Defenders splash. But I found when we were actually doing the pairing process, it was quite easy for me to get into other Crises teams. And most of the time, no one else on our team except for Norbert wanted them. So a lot of the time, we'd put Norbert and I down together into, say, Avengers or into X-Men.
Yeah.
So that's how we kind of tended to get those matchups.
All right, let's get into.
I think also going back to
make last point, Steve.
Sorry, no, just to go back to Vodka Blitz's question. I think Connor and I had done this before on the same team at a previous WTC, and we sort of knew. I think we knew enough about. We had overcomplicated it in previous years, and I think we sort of realized that actually just like you just end up basically. Also, the other bit I did get talked down by from Conor was I'm desperate. I always want to play random assignment. I always want to just shuffle them and play at random. So I think because I've done that before at WTC. It is quite arbitrary, the pairings. Like it's like something you think you have control of. But I think keeping it really, really simple actually helped us quite a lot, which was also about the composition of the team rather than because obviously if we'd had 5 equally skilled players, we couldn't have then been like, well, I'm never playing Guardians. Like someone has to take that sometime.
Yeah, and I realized I didn't make this as clear as I could have, but when I'm talking about playing against like certain teams, we were actually looking a lot less at the players and the rosters and a lot more at the crises. So I was seeing like, oh, this player's playing the same 3 secures as me. I can beat them because I'm Web Warriors, and they're not going to beat me on Riot Spark. And like same for Steve, it's like, oh, this person's playing like Demons, Gamma, Fisk. I get to fight them in the middle. Great. a lot of the time that was kind of the main focus more than anything else.
Okay, let's move over to the London B team and start talking through each of the rounds. Again, we're not going to go through every game in detail. We're just going to do a bit of highlights. You know, who was the team that you played against? How did the pairings go? And some highlights of the matches that got you the result that you got in the end. So, Angus, you want to kick us off with round one?
Yeah, so we were against the Italian Maestros. I don't actually have Longshanks up. If you give me a second, I'll get it up.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, Italy Maestro. Yeah.
Yeah, Italy Maestro. So these were actually, would have pegged them as a top 5 team. I was like, I know these guys are really good. They came to the Nations, or a lot of them were on the same team, came to the Nations, not this year, but the previous year, and they, I think, won or came second, but they're very, very good. They did actually have a sub because of the storm.
Right.
I think it was.
It was illness
Yeah.
for them. One person just couldn't make it.
Yeah, one person couldn't make it, and so they had a last minute substitution. By the way, I also played with them as a substitute in Spain, in Madrid, earlier this year on their team, a 5-man team that we did in Spain. It was fun. All right, Angus, you still with us?
So,
okay.
Yeah. Do you want to just run through the actual matchups we ended up in?
No, just did you win the pairing process? What was like the worry that you when you saw the list? You know, give us an overview rather than every step of the way.
Yeah. Okay. This was a bit the practice tournament, which didn't exactly fill us with confidence. After losing 3 games there, I think we felt okay about the pairings going into it, but it was a bit of an unknown. I think I'll let the other 2 talk about their matches if you want to, if they wanted to, but I don't think necessarily felt team. I think we kind of got out paired, to be honest. But we finished 2-3, so we nearly won, but we didn't.
Okay. Jamie, you want to tell us about some of the matches, maybe yours or somebody else's, that were key to the result that you got?
Yeah, I think mine was kind of interesting because the rest of London B will agree as well. I'm definitely the middle player. I'm the mid-range one that like we'd like to win but probably can't win. And I got paired into I think someone that completely put like the exact same skill level as me. It was the most fair game of MCP I've ever played ever. We felt completely matched in every way, and it came down to like 2 moves that I messed up, and that was it. And even Alessandro, who's my opponent, was like, yeah, that was basically 50-50. We both played the exact same game. So that was fun, but like it meant that, and we were in like the middle table as well, and the outer 2 had finished first, and it was 2-2, and it came down to that game. I was like, this is so symmetrical. I hate it. So that was fun. It was nice. Like it felt like okay, at least you know that when in football when they go, oh, football won this game. You know, it was one of those. Like yeah, it was a good game MCP. You know, it didn't really matter who won of us. So yeah, but they were just so strong. That was when I really realized the kind of caliber of games we were going to get there, because I play in London, right? So I'm getting slapped around every week by really, really good players, and then I went there and was like, wow, these guys are solid. Like, there's no mistakes happening here. Yeah. So that was my game. That was one of my favorite games. That one.
Cool. Anybody else had an interesting game to worth noting? Did you expect to win?
Angus and I were very much on the other end. As Jamie said, I think we went in with quite low confidence after the practice tournament, so I'm not sure if we expected anything really. And then yeah, going forwards, I think that first round loss took at least the pressure off. It's like, well, can only go upwards from here.
Interesting. Really. Were there any matches that you should have won, perhaps, that were on the edge?
Mine was a complete whitewash. I got outplayed, and I also failed 9 out of 12 pay to flips, and
but who's counting
by the infected rows? I was counting because at some point it got so frustrating, and I would have lost probably anyway, but this made it very easy for my opponent because once I started killing his models, I still couldn't flip uncontested objectives. I was like, well, you don't have models, but you can just continue scoring. It's fine. But Angus, I think, accidentally matched into their sub, which was also probably the weakest player by far.
Sure.
So Angus probably had the opposite of my match, relatively secure.
Yeah, it was a secure win. I think there was a joke going into it that I play to my opponent's skill level. So if you match me low, I'm quite likely to lose. If you match me high, I'm more likely to win.
Okay, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can relate to that, Angus. I can very much relate to that.
All right,
Will
thank
had
you.
an interesting. So quickly, Will had an interesting judge call on that, which I'm assuming everyone on this call knows the answer. But it was an injured Thanos was the only model left, and picked up the final Deadly Legacy virus cure thing.
Right.
And they had to call a judge over. They couldn't decide who had won because if you get tabled or not. Yeah. For anyone watching, it took them like 10 minutes to figure it out. Like 3 judges, and it ended up being that the model is when the model's killed, you lose. Yeah, the model dies first. And you don't score. So if your final injured model gets the cure, the legacy virus, you don't win. You lose. So yeah, it came down to that.
Oh my god. Oh god. So his opponent was the one trying to assemble the virus.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What was funny is I think Will was arguing that his opponent won, and the opponent was saying, "No, I've lost," and they were like, "No, I think you." And they had to get judges over to decide.
Wow. How could you have left that story off the table? That's a fantastic WTC story, man. This is more what we want. More content like that, please. Thank you.
Apparently, all the judges like got together afterwards and was like, "So, any interesting calls?" And they were all talking about that one. So that was fun.
It is good. All right, Conor, kick us off for Reclaim Colonials round 1.
Yeah, so round 1 was one of our matchups that had a very clear pairing rule, which is whenever the opponent had Brotherhood, we put down JJ first, and he takes whoever isn't the Brotherhood player. We do not like the Convocation Brotherhood matchup, and basically it then enables us to put 2 players into Brotherhood, which means they pick, which means we pick the worst table for Magneto to play on. Yeah. So that was one of our few very strong rules is they keep, and it worked every time. Every time we put JJ down first, they put Brotherhood into him, and we got Brotherhood on a bad table. So that was great. We got Steve into Brotherhood, which we wanted. We got me into Kingpin, which is great. Oh, I should say first, we were playing against the Germans, who for JJ, Steve, and I was just like a dream matchup, because these guys, some of these guys, like Sonny and Martin, are longtime friends from Guild Ball who we haven't seen since the last Guild Ball WTC in 2019, so 4 years ago. So we were just so thrilled to get them round 1, and we were having a great time the whole round. And I got to play against Martin, so we were chatting a bunch.
Joven as well, Joven Schultz as well, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And basically I managed to pair into Kingpin, which is great because I think we were running 5 of the same crises. And I won Prio, and we got the fastest combination, which was Scoundrels and Spider Infected.
Ooh.
And it was over turn 3, and no one dazed, and no one even got close to being dazed. It was very fast. It would have been very fast if he'd won as well, but I, with Prio and with better knowledge of the matchup, managed to take it. And then basically we got Ricky lost to Cyclops X-Men, and I think Norbert got thrown under the Guardians bus this round, and JJ managed to beat Webs, which he'll say more about because that was actually really interesting. And then it came down to basically Steve still playing with us at 2-2. And I literally had to leave because I couldn't, I was like, he should win this. But whenever Steve should win, not so sure.
This was the game I came closest to losing at the whole event. So I'm never that good in round 1. I totally forgot Deception existed, which was a minor issue. And then so I had to use all my Thanos to drag my own Zemo back. And then I made this catastrophic error of not basically mothershipping Corvus on top of Thanos just before Thanos would because Thanos would die next activation, so that Corvus is basically on the points, and then that's fine. If I do that, I just win because full health Corvus. So I totally forget to do that. Thanos dies, and I can't get Corvus onto the point. And attack, and I need to move. So I basically move up, don't get onto the point. I'm like, well, I guess I roll 5 dice and see if I do 7 damage to Juggernaut, and I do.
Oh my god!
That is
I didn't know.
Pure skill. Yeah, pure skill.
I'm so glad I don't watch other people's games on my team because I would have lost my mind.
No, I was just going.
damn mind.
Yeah, I
When-
was just like, it was so bad. It was like, so and my opponent was great. He was one of the London guys. He was really, really nice. And like, yeah, so I like he totally outplayed me. I absolutely should have lost that game, and I just diced him with the last roll of the game, basically.
God. JJ.
Yeah.
This
No,
is also our first of 3 rounds where we're at 2-2, and it all comes down to the last game. So this comes up again.
Yeah.
But yeah, JJ, you had a super interesting game as well.
Yeah, the problem was because Conor finished so quickly, he was walking around doing the captain thing and like just checking in on the games, but doing it like a respectable distance. But you know, for anyone that can see Conor here or knows him in general, like the guy can't hide his reactions. Like his facial expressions are like pretty animated. So he's walking around, he's behind Sonny, and he's like looking at the score. At the end of round 2, I was down 10-2.
Oh, God.
So and you just see Conor walk past, and his face just kind of like hit the floor. Like, there's no way we're winning this round, right? Like, this is all over. We've come here. We didn't think we were going to do well, and we haven't. Game over. But Conor didn't give me enough credit. Sonny played a great game, but when I won prior, when I got my secures, I figured I could beat Webbs on my secures, but not my extracts and their secures. And we ended up with an E shape straight down the middle on portals on demons. So it was like, Webbs on Fire is Convocation's playground at a certain point in time. And so by the end of turn 2, I was down 10-2, but I saw that he couldn't get more than 2 points a turn from that point, and I was getting 5 or 6 every round.
Wow.
And there was no way for him to stop it, because if he came and contested the central points, I just deleted him because I had Strange with the Soulstone, Ancient One, Mordo, and Ebony Maw. And none of them were injured, so I just sat in the middle and just killed anything that came close, and just 6 points. So I was down 10-2, but I was looking very I was in my mind had done the math, and I'm like, this has only got 3 more turns, and he can't beat me. And at that point, I'm on 17 or 18 points, and he's only on 16, so we're good. But Conor didn't see the table. He just looked at the score and just sapped my confidence a bit. Yeah. I'm like, wait, the math is good here, right?
What have I overlooked? I'll tell real quickly.
To be fair, it was the opposite to Steve, where I saw Steve. I was like, he definitely got this, and then I come back 20 minutes later. I'm like, God damn it, Steve, what happened?
Real quick for my game, which was indeed against the CGR Guardians, I actually was doing pretty well. He was a newer guy, super nice guy too. We really had a nice game. I was doing really well, actually blowing him up. And it came down to me killing CGR, which I did, which was great. And then he played Deal with the Devil and brought CGR back on full health on the healthy side. Or no, then he was playing normal. It was normal. It was a normal Ghost Rider then.
I was about to say,
yeah.
Really
no. Whatever it was definitely legal. But I just couldn't deal with it because all my guys were already injured at that point. So he started scoring points because he comes back healthy. Whatever the other character is, and so he sacrificed a healthy guy. And I was like, oh no. So that was the end of that. Thankfully, we won. Okay, round 2.
Yeah, I would say.
Oh, go ahead, real quick.
The only thing I was going to say is we came in with a fairly non-competitive mindset. We wanted to do well. We didn't come in with high expectations. And as soon as we found out there was a bye, I was like, we have to win this round. I'm not getting a bye at WTC. Because the rounds are so long as it is.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not 4 hours between games.
I know. We definitely felt like we had won the WTC by winning that round and not having to do a bye ever. Yeah. So that was our bar. We had met it. We were like, yes, we get to play all 5 rounds. Hooray. Okay. Round 2, Angus, who did you play into? I mean, which team?
Played into the Gathering, the second Irish team, the Limerick team.
Okay, cool.
Also say as well, just on expectations, I think the rest of the team might have been a little bit more down on themselves, because I definitely thought to win the whole thing, and losing that first game just kind of didn't knock my confidence at all actually in the team. I think, well, let's just play really well. I think we actually bounced back from a close loss against a good team. We came into the second round actually feeling great considering that.
That's the right attitude. I'm really glad to hear that you guys did that, because otherwise you can go down a spiral that's not going to do you any good for the rest of the event. All right, So you played against the Irish team from Limerick. Okay. What were the notable matches?
Well, just to set the scene really
Oh yeah.
so good in their first round. I think they went 0-5, and we know a lot of the other Irish team, like the Daredevils Catholic Guild, and like this is probably a good message about preconceptions about teams, as I thought they weren't going to be that great. Really bad game where I got my ass beat, spoilers, by Owen. But sorry, I'm on the wrong thing on Longshanks. Let me just get
Yeah,
the
I
team
met
up.
Owen at the Nations, actually. We were rooming together. He was relatively new to the game, but really committed to it. And yeah, had a great showing.
Yeah. We. Right.
Yeah, I went
Bad.
into Ian, and I was like, okay, we lost, they lost harder than us. This is like battle of the losers. I got this, and I fucking lost. I went to Malekith as well, and I was like proudly walking in, like, guys, I'm the Malekith player. I can take out Malekith. I'm X-Men. I got down. I got Hulk. I can take out Malekith. I've played 400 games into Malekith, and I got slapped several times. It was awful. So I was really down after this one.
Well,
Jamie and I were next
took
to each other as well.
Yeah.
I think
I
I
was
took
like,
the
this is so
metaphorical bus.
You took the bus. You were under the bus.
Well, in theory, yes. In theory, my opponent had Cosmic Ghost Rider Guardians list. In practice, he preferred Viper over Cosmic Ghost Rider.
Oh, whoa. I wonder how you bamboozled him
So-
into doing that switch.
I think it was the switch. He said he likes Viper, and I think the others just told him to put Cosmic Ghost Rider in his list. I don't think he played Cosmic Ghost Rider the whole tournament.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I had 3 models. Out of the 3 models, Voodoo did not do a single attack in the whole game.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, but you...
No, but I tabled him.
Yeah. Wow. So that's how you won, by tabling him. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Did Viper
it
do
was-
anything at least? Not really.
She's actually, her conditions can be incredibly annoying
Hmm.
for everybody more. So I don't think she's as bad as people give her credit for. Long mover as well. I think she was quite fast at least.
Yep.
But yeah, I think Cosmic Ghost Rider would have been probably better pick. But good on people not playing Cosmic Ghost Rider.
Yeah. All right. So Jamie and Angus lost that one, but you had 3 wins, I think, and went on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Callum and
Yeah.
Will.
Yeah. Anything nutty about their games that worth talking about?
I was
Yeah,
so
Will
shocked I
finished-
wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, I know. Will
Will
finished in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It was like
He
2 hour
just
round.
he did a Malekith on our side, so yeah.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, Will played Research Cosmic Invasion at 15 and was like, "Oh, cool! I've practiced this 10,000 times with Malekith. I'm just gonna do this."
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
so yeah,
Cool.
And Callum just threw shit at people, so
He was playing is it Brotherhood, right?
Brotherhood.
Magneto, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Magneto, yeah, Magneto into Web Warriors, which if
Oh.
you can't run away quick enough, is horrible. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite nice. We can't say it now, but pre WTC, we and they were calling them our road bumps. They were kind of the people that we were going to put into the best players and just hope they win because they got Malekith and Magneto. Because those are really good teams to just win with, right? You could just sheer amount of dice. But they obviously played really well. I mean, yeah, Will went 5-0 and Callum went 3-2. So lots of skill involved as well.
Our road bumps are really good players.
As it turns out.
Yeah,
That's a
maybe
secret.
I road bump. Shit.
Connor, round 2. Oh, go ahead, Angus. Finish up.
I think if anything, both this and Nations has shown us is that like you can firstly improve really quickly, and secondly, the idea of a road bump I think is just not. I don't think anybody should go into these events thinking that you can't win matches because that's just not true. Everybody makes mistakes. Small mistakes spiral into big mistakes, and then you win games. So it was nice that the whole team did great.
Totally. All right, Connor, who do we play round 2?
Yeah, so we managed to get the Freedom Force, basically the Danger Room guys with Jesse from Fury's Finest. And I will say, prior to the event, I had picked these guys as my favorites to win WTC. So I
Confidence.
had a lot of faith in them,
Yeah.
and I did not love our chances here. But basically, what ended up happening is I put Norbert down first, and they put Sploosh and DeLuca down. And basically, I did not want to play against DeLuca because my webs list is really bad. My WTC list specifically is really bad in the mirror. Other than Guardians, it was my worst matchup. And I felt both fine into. I felt much better in the Sploosh's list, and I also thought we had other stuff that was better into it. So then basically, I kind of threw Norbert under the bus and was like, well, DeLuca's a really good player. I think Webb beat Criminals, but like it's a close matchup. You like the same secures. I think it's going to be a tough one, but it's okay. So we got that one. And then basically I managed to get, I think I put myself and, or maybe, no, because yeah, I put myself and Steve's Thanos list into Sploosh, I believe. And he chose to go under the Steve bus. Which I think they viewed it that way as well, that was the list they were the most worried about. And that felt like a
I don't know why. I only had Thanos and Ghost Rider. It's fine. Like, why would anyone be bothered by that? Like,
yeah. And
I'm
then
a good player. I'm a good player. I'm not just all crutches.
No comment. Basically, the rest of the process was pretty interesting. I don't remember exactly how it ended up, but we got Ricky into Sooner, their Inhumans player. I think we were trying to get Steve or Ricky into that matchup because none of us have a ton of Inhumans experience. I've literally never played against them. So I did not want that matchup. And then basically, what was interesting is I had the choice of either playing against Deaton's Sam list or Jesse's X-Men list. And I think in a theoretical sense, Webb's are Sam's worst matchup, and I think Deaton agrees on that. But Deaton's a very good Webbs player and a very good Sam player who's played the matchup a bunch on both sides. And I have very minimal Sam experience because Avengers aren't that popular here. Whereas obviously, as we know, with Jamie, and with Joe, and like we have so many X-Men players. So I'd actually think I'd been like, it's the matchup I'd played the most since the errata, and I hadn't lost it yet. I decided I was going to take X-Men, and I thought Avengers would be easier for Convocation than X-Men anyway. So we went with that, and basically I won an absolute nail biter versus Jesse. It was an awesome game. Peter Parker leadership ended up being really clutch. We played at 16 on Scoundrel's Paranoia. Scoundrel was my best secure I could have pulled, and Paranoia was probably the extract I wanted the least of his because he had the 2 Fs. So if we get one of those, I go up and I'm in a really good spot. Instead, I ended up going down to start. But I got a really, really big all webbed up turn, not so much for damage, but for turning on the leadership to just displace a ton of people.
Yeah.
And I scored 7 points turn 3 to close out the game.
Oh, wow.
Which was pretty sick. He had last activation too, and just needed to deny me. I think he needed to deny me 2 points to not lose, and he just couldn't do it.
Conor, that's great. So basically, no one cares about any of those games. There's only one game in this round that matters, right? There's only one game. There's only one game. You're burying the lead, man. There's only one game that matters.
So basically, Steve tables his opponent is the first game done. Well, he doesn't table. Your opponent conceded, I believe.
Yeah.
The first concession of Steve's scouts.
Yeah, not the last.
Not the last.
Ricky lost, but it sounded like it was a pretty good game. JJ, you lost quite big on the score, but I think you said it was not as bad as it.
Yeah, it was super close because we were playing. What is it? One where if you pick up the extract, you get to move them if you don't roll the right thing. I'm bad with the names of them. Anyway, he did that with Beta Ray Bill, and I got to pull him out from behind cover and basically flipped him turn 1, and put myself in a really strong place to sort of just keep pushing and destroying things. And just one key moment, I think, in turn 3, he just spiked a huge roll into Strange, and I rolled all blanks. And got blanks and skulls, and that was the end of Strange. And all of a sudden my damage output went to very close to 0, even though I was just about to remove Dynamo, Iron Man, and Bill that turn. basically. I was in a pretty strong spot, but at that point, removing Strange. I mean, Deacon's super strong player, right? Like, I mean, if I was even remotely competitive with him, I was very happy with. But yeah, from there it was over.
And I think I was actually, usually I was one of the first games to finish. I think it was the second last in this round. I think it was just Norbert left when I finished. So we were
Norbert's
down.
game went on for a long time. I think Norbert should talk us through it. Norbert should talk us through this.
Yeah, the game of the tournament, in my opinion. So
you guys are too kind.
Go ahead.
Honestly, I need your help because I was so focused in this. Jamie knows this. When we play each other, I stop talking. I'm continually thinking to try to stay focused on the game because of my limited brain power. And he was playing ASM leadership on a D secure, and I was playing Kingpin. I went with Kingpin, and I was so focused on the game that I didn't realize what was going on, to be honest with you. But the key moments were I parked Bullseye on a flank all by himself on the far like center D secure, and he sent amazingly DeLucas. I thought he was going to have ASM grab an extract and then walk back into the middle somewhere, right? Which is kind of the usual play, and steal one of mine, basically, because it was Senators. Senators was the secure extract. But he didn't do that. Instead, he went after a Bullseye, which I think makes sense, right? You just wipe out Bullseye and score points. The thing is, Bullseye was having none of it. He tanked, I have to say, at least 7 attacks from ASM over the course of the game, where he would take either no damage or 1 damage, and then is it riots? So he would just heal the 1 damage. That's all he did. It was really bad. I felt very bad. It was really bad. But I did learn from Angus. Give credit to Angus. The week before we played a match, he played ASM, and he totally, with Crims and me Kingpin, he totally schooled me, in particular because I didn't really fully appreciate the way slow gets put on people, and then he could take the slow off and push them away, kind of a thing. And so I was really, one thing I'll give credit to myself is I did very cleverly choose my activations such that he was forced to throw the slow onto Bullseye before Bullseye was activated, so that I could then just remove the condition as one of my actions, which screwed up his ability to pop me off, in addition to not killing me. So that was that. At the same time this was happening, I pressured hard on his home secure. He had gathered Wong and a Ghost Spider, not Ghost Spider, but other characters all in the backs one, trying to protect that one and gain points there. And I sent all my heavy hitters straight into that because they're mobile. My list is mobile. That's how they work. So Rhino was in there and Gwenpool was in there, just beating up the cheerleaders, essentially, which was no good. And then the other bad luck he had was his Ghost Spider. He committed Ghost Spider because he didn't take out Bullseye so early, so he committed Ghost Spider to another side. And I learned also from Conor that Ghost Spider is the #1 priority on the kill list. And so so I spared no expense and nailing that bitch. And so I took her down, and it was so good. It was really helpful.
My favorite part of this game, Norbert, was not the game itself, right? But Norbert, being the absolute true gentleman that he is, could clearly see that his opponent had poured his heart and soul into this and gone deep in the tank, and DeLuca was visibly upset at the situation. And Norbert, being the true gentleman, went around, gave him a hug, and just said, that was incredibly well played, and was just very sportsmanly about it. And we as a team just wanted to run over, because we thought this was it for the tournament for us, right? We thought we were losing this round 100%. So we just wanted to celebrate and go wild. Norbert's being very considerate, and we're all going in, and Norbert just gently, while he's giving him a hug, just kind of signals to us, just give us space. This now is not the time. This is going to be too negative for him. And then, so he does that, kind of misses the signal altogether, and just runs in and goes, yeah! And just
literally he was running around away.
Oh my god, it that happened.
But
But
you know how much money I then had to spend on beer for them to make up for you doing that, Connor? Those rounds are
Yeah.
not cheap in Denmark. Like, like that was
I've got, by the way, that's not the last story of Conor missing a social queue. I've got a real good one coming up. Post round 3, I've got a good one.
It's not the first nor the last. Fine.
If we went through all of those, we'd be here for 5 hours. So.
yeah, at least.
Speeches from Connor's wedding.
yeah. So
Honestly,
I think that game was like, I think it's a spectator that like Connor and I were on the other like the hall is massive. You know, it's several hundred meters long, and Connor and I just couldn't watch. We were on the other side of the hall talking to the Germans and the Belgians because we just couldn't watch that last game, and it just went and went and went and went, and it was like, and I think also like, you know, like, are we going to do this? Is this actually going to happen? Because I think, you know, they were massive favorites against us, and they were lovely guys as well. Like, so that was great for the rest of the event. They were like, you know, we chatted to them loads. They were great guys, and like I've been at events where you've underdogged the favorites, and they've been, you know, dicks about it, and they were great about it. They were really good guys. Like, so I can't say, despite Conor being a bell end. So like this, so I think that's like worth noting.
Listen, I'm a Canadian. I need to be smug about American losses. It's in our national heritage.
So that
But
was.
I will
Go
say
ahead.
The event, because that game ran so long, and it started to look like you were going to win. The event with the whole hall was starting to like keep an eye on that game, like because it was one of the last ones going. Everyone was like going over and like surreptitiously looking, or like coming up to me and asking, like, "Did he do it? Did he do it?" Like it was buzzing, wanting to see you win that game.
Yeah. I'll be very honest.
Was,
I didn't realize I was winning. Honestly, I was so focused on every round, just trying to score the right amount of points, staying out of trouble. And all of a sudden, when everybody started getting quiet, like it got noticeably quiet, I happened to look over to the scoreboard and I realized I was 3 points away from winning, and he was quite a ways back, and I had like 5 points unless he, you know, did anything different. And so then I was like, oh my God, that's when I started getting nervous, which was like my mistake.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So that was the end of day one. Good times were had. We
got one more round.
Oh, that was only 2 games.
Oh my God. Yes, of course. Sorry. It was round 2. Okay. Yeah, we still have to go. So Angus, back to you. Round 3. Who did you play against?
Dragons.
So this was
so
another
another England team, the Northern-ish. I don't know specifically if it was a conglomeration or if they were all. I think it was more like a squished together team.
Might have been, yeah.
Yeah, it was basically whoever was left after the first teams were made, and then a few people dropped and got moved on to the Lions, and like new people got added. It was definitely a conglomeration team.
Oh, we have one of the Dragons in the chat. Welcome, Shelty. The captain, actually.
Hey.
All right, go ahead, Angus. So you matched into them.
Yeah, I think at this point, after a close run win against the Gathering, I think we kind of hit our stride with the pairings a little bit. I was feeling quite good about how things were going, particularly pull us through in the last round, like after Jamie and I lost quickly. So we're feeling pretty good into this. So we had
Angus, real quick, was your pairing process a collective endeavor amongst the team, or was it mostly you?
So we were pulling in the week before. We'd found that us all shouting over each other, that was not helping at all. So we had Maria and Cal basically scoping out tables to see what was good, what was bad for Brotherhood and Convocation. When you've got more there, you can throw a bunch of stuff. So a big table is no real detriment to Maria for a lot of the time, and it gave us like a pick to like try and maneuver Cal onto a really good Brotherhood table, or at least the least bad Brotherhood table. Then I was doing the pairings with mostly whoever was up, not really Will. He just kind of like got paired off and then did his thing. There was a lot of like Jamie and Maria.
Okay, so you kind of split duties a little bit, it sounded like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we've got because of the transparent pairing sheet, it was quite easy you could just ask people about the specific maps if you pull them over, but it was kind of, we needed to spread that out because having 5 people try and make those decisions is too much.
100%. All right. Tell us about
Yeah.
round 3 then.
We kind of hit our stride, I think, with the pairings processes, and as players, I think we were starting to get up some steam. Will wanted the Cabal matchup because he knows Dave Miller, and they've played that matchup a couple of times, and Will beats him each time, so he felt really confident there. I had some vengeance in my soul losing to Brotherhood in the last game. I was like, I'm definitely not going to do that this time. I'm going to make sure I just play my game, do it well. Then Jamie had Dave with Guardians.
Yeah, I fancy myself as a bit of a Titan killer, having just lost to Malekith. I thought, well, I'll go and lose to Thanos now too.
And then Cal had I don't know the name here. C. Burnell is the handle with webs, so he played Hellfire into webs.
Right.
And then Maria had. Well, I think overall, I think we felt pretty good about these pairings. I know Will felt good about his. I felt good about mine. Yeah, I think it went pretty well. I think
What was the team score at the end of this round?
We finished 4-1.
So only one game got dropped this round.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to shout out my game, actually. I played David Kwan, and so this is my first war game. I've never been to an international event or anything like this, and someone, I won't name names, but they're on this call, they're my captain, has been warning me of the Americans for many years. Said Americans play a certain way, they're very strict with their measurements and stuff like this. They play the game completely differently, and David was the first American opponent I'd had that come from over there. And I was fired, and they called me out on a bad measurement immediately, and I was like, oh my god, Angus was right. I can't measure away before the actual thing happens. Oh my god. So that was really interesting, but David played the cleanest game I've ever seen. So this sounds really dumb, but you know when you say like, I'm going to hit you with 5 dice physical, and you go cool and you roll dice. Well, David was calling out like, okay, I have 3 defense dice, I'm going to roll that, and I've rolled 2 crits, I'm going to pop those crits, and he was just listing everything that happened, and it was like I was playing a computer game. I knew every step that was going on, and yeah, it was a really nice way to play. It felt very clean, it felt very fair, even though he kept calling me out on dodgy measurements. So I kind of I want to play more like Dave is basically what I'm saying. I think
good for you, man.
Because the game's transparent, right? It's open knowledge game. So he kind of inspired me. I want to play more like that.
Yeah.
But you're still using that tape measure, Jamie, right?
God no, I'm not a natural nerd. I'm a proxy nerd. Am I still measuring away before I can? Yes, I am, because no English person will call me out, so I don't care.
Is David from the States or Canada? Was it States or Canada he came over from?
God, I hope it's the States, because I just said he was American.
Shelty, maybe you could tell us. But go ahead, Angus.
I played Greg, my game, and we were on the same flight back, and we had a nice chat in the airport afterwards on the way back. It was lovely.
Yeah, he's from California, as it turns out. I thought so.
Yeah, I just checked. Thank God.
Cool. Great. Okay. Any other games that worth mentioning? Anything interesting, or should we move on?
I want to mention one thing actually in relation to practice. I practiced my arse off WTC, months and months and months. I was doing extract plays. I really figured out all my measurements and stuff. Will, our teammate, took the piss out of me for having a spreadsheet for X-Men and all the different measurements and stuff. And I was like, when I win priority, I can do all my extract plays with X-Men. It's gonna be great. And on Saturday, I won priority for all 3 games, and I pulled researcher every single game. So just don't over practice, guys. Don't over practice.
Or maybe practice your bad matchups. I don't know.
That hurt my soul.
Okay, well, we'll get to my last game of round 5. That was, oh my lord, I'm still hurting. Moving on. That was Saturday. Done. We'll come back to the debauchery.
We got to do our round, Norbert. Don't forget us.
Oh my god, I'm sorry. It's I'm a pint into this porter and it's working its magic. Yeah. So yes, round 3, please. Who did we play?
So we played against the Belgians, which is another one of the teams that had a couple former Guild Ballers on them that we hadn't seen in 4 years. So we were just like having the best luck with pairings day one. We were psyched.
Yeah.
Just getting so many friends we hadn't seen in years, which again, for anyone who hasn't been to WTC, the games are fine, but like the social factor you get from like being teams playing against teams, and a lot of these people play over years and you see them like once a year. It's awesome. It's the best part of the game. I cannot suggest going to WTC enough. Don't worry if you're not very good. Just go anyway if you can. So basically this round was really funny. My highlight of this round is they've got Brotherhood. They've got cool pairing cards. There's like a picture of Magneto on the pairing card. They've got the list. So I'm like, cool. We go with our general Brotherhood plan. We put JJ down. We choose the non Brotherhood option. They pick a table, and then we put. Generally, we were putting Steve and Ricky into Brotherhood as there are fighty teams, and then they go and pick. And basically, as I was about to put the cards down, I actually looked closer at their roster, and they were running all D-shaped secures. So I looked up on Longshanks. Yeah, it turns out they were a Mystique Brotherhood player, and the Magneto on the pairing card was a total trap, and it totally almost worked on me.
They said
and
it worked every other round,
the
didn't
fighty
they?
teams into a D-shaped team.
Oh my god.
They
That
said
is-
it worked every
Sneaky
other round.
Falcon.
That is so clever. That is so clever. That's Kim Pipers, everyone.
So funny.
Kim
Yeah,
Pipers is captain.
very clever. Yeah, very sneaky, Kim. But I did catch it just in time, so instead I put myself and Norbert down for it as our two crises teams, and they picked Norbert. And then I got into their Wakanda player. I've not got a ton of Wakanda experience, but he was running 5 of the same 6 crises I was. And I basically, as I said earlier, if they're running my crises, I'm happy in the matchup. And then basically Ricky got Black Order, JJ got Kim's Inhumans, and Steve got Shield, which we actually kind of thought was a bad matchup. And
I
was the
owe
matchup
Matthias an
I thought
apology.
we were.
Yeah, this was one I thought was a really bad matchup for Black Order because of the mobility and things like that. So and Matthias I've met before from Guild Ball, and we're chatting, and I say I've never played against Shield, which is true, and I'm like I don't think it's a good matchup for Shield, which I thought was true. So we play at 19 threat, and I have well, I'm gonna try this. So it turns out that Thanos, Ghost Rider, and Corvus Glaive are real good against Shield, like real good. So
Angus's face. It's
yeah,
like,
was like I felt like when you're sort of playing and you're like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Feeling dirty.
And I basically just I felt bad, man. I felt really like I essentially made like a gut with Thanos and Ghost Rider with Corvus as the bowl, and they ate his whole team in about 30 minutes. And I was just like and Matthias is such a nice guy, and I was like I felt like such a prick. But he was real good about it. But yeah, big apologies to him for that. But yeah, turns out if you want tech into Shield with Black Order, that's the tech. It's really good against them.
Yeah, it was very funny. Go ahead, JJ.
No, I got to play Kim because for the WTCs in Guild Ball, Kim was always the organizer. So Kim was someone that I've known for years, but I've never actually had the chance to play against. So super good guy. I got to hang out with him a bunch. Never got drunk way too much with the guy, but never got to play him. So I was really happy to finally get to play him at something. And then the match was good, but there was the one memorable thing was we were playing. I'm really bad with the name. It was a wide rectangular secure thing. So I put Red Skull down thinking that's my best play on that is drop the grunts in the back and let Red Skull harass on a flank basically. And he had Ronin on the opposite flank and he advanced Ronin to try and get rid of the grunts off the back secure, and they just defended everything. I was hoping they'd die so it turned my books back on and I could then just push and cause problems. But they didn't. And then they just loaded their guns and took a pop shot back at Ronin. And in the 4 dice, rolled 3 crits in the wild, and the 3 crits turned into 3 more hits.
Oh.
And he didn't make any saves, and I flipped him, and then Red Skull went and killed him at the start of the next turn. And I'm just like, wow, that really went badly for you. He's like, yeah. I'm really glad they gave you that 1 health point buff, huh? But yeah, so it was a bit rough, but you take the spiky dice in this game, right?
Hell yeah. I did
Yeah.
the opposite in my game.
My game was.
Oh.
Go ahead.
No,
You go
real
first,
quick.
Norbert.
Real quick is I did the opposite in my game because he had the Mystique Brotherhood. He had Juggernaut, Hulk, and one other big boy along with Mystique and Toad. We played 20 points, and I was like, I can't kill these people. So I took Kingpin, and all I did was basically it was again a D shape, which totally helped me out, and Researcher. And so I just kept running around from one point to wherever he wasn't and scoring those points because I couldn't have killed him otherwise. And so towards the end, naturally, he finally whittled me down a bit. But at that point, my points were so far ahead of the game, it was fine. So I felt really good about that game. Super nice player, by the way. He was really good and relatively new to the game. So hats off to him for playing so well. But I felt in the zone because I was really focused on playing to my strengths rather than trying to do like the obvious things.
Yeah, I think as a team, this was our most dominant victory. The only round we won 4-1. And I feel like a lot of us felt like our game plans were working like to their highest here. So I played Peter Parker leadership for the second time of the day. I ran Miles the first game solely because my opponent played 4 models of 5 with short moves. Otherwise, it would have played ASM all 5 rounds at WTC. I did play him all 5, but I would have played his leadership all 5. And this was like a total clinic of how strong that leadership was. It was Riots and Spider Infected. I didn't have Prio, so he took the center with the Spirit of Wakanda eyes on the prize thing. And basically, I just decided that he had Killmonger and Panther on one flank and Miles on the other. And he could web swing because of Spirit, but I just decided to dive his F extract anyway with ASM. And then basically the rest of the game was a combination of me making some really good fallback and Spider Tracker to ruin his Usurp the Throne turn, and also basically just ASM leadership being insane. Like he just couldn't rotate as fast as I could. And that was basically the game. It was just like an absolute Web Warrior clinic. It was a really, really fun game. And there were definitely some bits that were looking a bit scary, but I just kept slowing things and then displacing them off the points, and he couldn't keep up.
Well,
and poor Ricky was our only loss of the round as he got thrown into the only other true Black Order player of the event. There were a lot of people declared Black Order, but there were really only 2 people properly running them, and they were running them really differently. So whereas Steve played Thanos every round, Nikki ran leaderless Black Order because he didn't play the Corvus leadership card, but he also didn't Thanos. And I believe he went 4-1 and
4-1, yeah. Which because we put Ricky into that because obviously Ricky and I are local to each other, so he's played Black Order's probably his most played matchup, and he's got some quite good tech for it. And obviously none of it was relevant because he didn't play Thanos, so it was. But it was really interesting. Yeah, that was super interesting. I was sort of the belief there's only one way to play Black Order, but it turns out I'm totally wrong.
yeah, good for you.
Yeah, and I think it's a really cool part of WTC that Jamie mentioned a bit earlier about why team events are so awesome. That like people have been really down on Black Order, and obviously the errata changed this. But the fact that they had the highest win rate of any faction with more than like 3 games at WTC, and
they didn't have the Dormammu win rate. Like we got to remember that Dormammu is the best faction now. Dormammu is now the best faction in all of MCP.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, that was basically us day 1. So we were pretty like honestly like in shock to be in the final 4 at this point.
Cool. So Angus, how did you guys as a team feel after the round, the day was over? And how did you kind of like, what kind of headspace were you in going into day 2?
You're on mute, Angus.
You're on mute, big guy.
Yeah, sorry. I think we felt pretty good. We were clawing our way back up the rankings. I personally had a terrible night's sleep the night before. And I went to get a nap. We then got some food in the hotel because the wind was still up, I think, or it was still a horrible day outside. And we hung out until the late hours with, I know at least myself and Callum being up quite late. We're feeling good. I mean, it's a great event.
Yeah, cool. But I
We
mean,
we performed well.
how did you like? What were you doing? Were you just trying to forget about the next day and go into it with no expectations? Were you preparing it all overnight, or did you just enjoy the social aspect of it?
Just the social aspect, I think.
Good.
Unless I've forgotten.
You remember it differently. You were like, no, we have to go 4-1. And I was like, 2 would be great too, right? And it's like, no. Only 4-1 we need to do it. I was like, okay, sure, that's fine.
I remember we were sat with England Lions, the other team that went. So we went what 2-1. They went 2-1. Basically, we lost some games. Sat in a little circle. Everyone's kind of decompressing, and then Conor strolls over and goes, "Sorry, where are the England teams that are undefeated sat?" I've never seen a joke drop so dead in my life. There was like a 5-second gap of silence until everyone was just like, "Shut the fuck up." It was the worst timing ever.
But
Everyone
the
was
crowd
feeling
in
so down.
Conor's head.
I literally
the crowd
thought
in
Rich
Conor's
Mid
head
was going to
very
stab
happy.
me.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great. See, that was a purposeful awkward moment, so I'm okay with that one.
All right. I could say for us, I think we had it easy. I mean, we definitely socialized, but we didn't go nuts. I went to bed at reasonable time.
We watched South Africa knock
course.
England out of the semi-finals of the World Cup, which Ricky needed, given we bossed him every round, and that weirdly, and I think we all agree, the most pivotal thing for our team's morale was the fact that South Africa won that rugby match, because it meant that Ricky actually turned up today. So
I know. Okay, we're gonna.
It was very funny seeing Ricky and JJ in England jerseys cheering against England. Enjoyed that.
Okay, Angus, take us away. Round 4, day 2, round 4.
Round 4, Croatia. We all made it to the games at the start of the games. We didn't all make it to the pairing process in time. But the games, we made it for the games.
Okay, so there were
didn't.
some people absent from the pairing process, is what you're saying?
And some people
yeah.
should have been absent from the pairing process as well.
Ooh, intriguing.
Will was still slightly hungover and just shouting, "Yeah, no, I'm the worst player. Do that." He was just giving away all our thinking. It was like,
Yeah.
Maria was Callum had a heavy night along with Rich Mid and a few others, and only had a few hours sleep. Showed up a bit late, and Maria during the pairing process was completely cold. Maria was just like, "Pick their best player, but put Callum into it. I don't care." Which I think we did both times. Yeah, Maria was like, "Punish him. Give him the best player they have."
Yeah, he definitely. Callum actually got the bad end of the stick, because we were all feeling a little. Because he turned up late. But the pairings went well.
He plays a lot better leftover drunk. So
yeah,
he won both his games.
Yeah,
it
was fine.
It works. Yeah. He's now allowed to drink as much as he wants and not sleep at all. He's allowed to do that now.
All right. So who'd you play?
We played Croatia.
Oh yeah,
Croatia.
This was my favorite round of the whole tournament, just because firstly my opponent was lovely, but I think as a team they really exemplified what these national events are about, or international events are about, because they was so respectful, so warm, friendly, but really on this level of I felt privileged to play against them.
Yeah,
because they were so nice and they were so clearly making a massive effort to just be the best that they could be, and it's quite inspiring.
I got one too. I got a pin from them. They were so nice. The Croatian pin, lovely.
Yeah, it felt like it really felt like this was an international event playing against them. I kind of forgot. I guess we're really privileged in London, right? Because Norbert does such a good job looking after us and making the scene big. And when we played these guys, they were really, really serious, really into it, really into the Croatia versus London thing. And I was like, oh, no, this is a big deal. And then we spoke to them afterwards. It turns out their meta is 12 players wide. And they were the 5 best. And it kind of made me realize this is actually a big fucking deal. All these different countries coming together. It really means something.
Yeah.
Genuinely. Yeah. And we didn't do the Team Israel speech, right? At the start, Team Israel couldn't make it. They wrote a speech. I started crying in that little kind of intro thing. You forget this is a world event, right? It's crazy. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's good. It's good comment. Good comment. All right, what was notable about this match?
Round some plastic superheroes.
So we actually finished 1, which is great. I was the only loss. My game is amazing game. We went to round 6. I lost 18-16 against an Avengers player.
Oof.
Yeah, honestly, it was a brilliant game. A real thinker. We were just having both of us were having a great time playing it. It was yeah, excellent. I can't emphasize more how good a game and how nice the people were.
Yeah.
I also think I was the last one to finish, maybe, or maybe not, because I didn't really have a scope on the rest of the games going on. I don't know if you two can speak on that.
I think I got the weakest player. They picked me, by the way. I think my game finished twice.
You didn't send him out and go hunt him down? Is that what you're trying to say, Maria? You're like, I sense weakness.
So I don't know if their thinking was, oh, we just bust them into convocation.
Oh, fair.
Or it's like, oh, it's a girl, maybe he beats her. It's like there are two ways of thinking. I've encountered both in previous game systems I played. But yeah, so I think my game was one of the first ones to finish.
Who, anybody have a interesting match? Hey, we have a Croatian guy. My match against Angus was also my favorite from the tournament. Oh, thanks, Bikey. Hey. Nice.
Yeah, this was my favorite game of the tournament. Again, because of it really felt like an international game. We shook hands in between rounds.
Oh.
We were super respectful of each other. It was great. I loved it. I and now I am fucking certain that X-Men counter webs, right? I think, as an X-Men player, I love my game into webs, but the only webs players I play are fucking Angus and Conor. And they're in the top 5 web players in the whatever. And so I obviously get my ass kicked all the time, but I'm determined to prove that X-Men do counter webs. And the whole time I was playing this webs guy, Angus's voice was in my head going, no, they don't counter webs at all. And everything I did countered what he was doing. Anyway, so I was trying to prove Angus. I beat Angus harder than I beat the Croatians that day. I proved my point.
Brilliant. All right, let's move on. Conor, who did we play round 4?
We played probably the biggest surprise of the whole event,
Agreed.
Which was Austria. So going into the event, I don't think anyone had these guys on their lists of who we thought would do well. Not so much because people didn't rate them, but just no one knew anything about them. They've basically, I don't think any of them really played TTS. They haven't come over to big UK events. So if you look at, when I was looking them up on Longshanks the night before, it's just all events in Austria. And when you've got a very not small, but smaller than us, and it's, all your events are within there, it's very hard to predict how strong that player base is.
But I think it's a point worth making that can be really, like you're saying about Croatia, Jamie, a small closed meta in any war game can be really, really strong. And I'd say that for if anyone's in a country where you just play with your pals in a little group of, 5 or 10 of you, there's a genuine chance you could get to the final of something. This happens, this isn't the first time this has happened in war games, right? Didn't happen in Guild Ball because the Germans always won, but in other war games, tiny, all sorts of teams just come out of nowhere and do really well and stuff.
And don't forget, there was that real debate of if Argentina were just going to crush everyone in Guild Ball, because they basically had never played anyone, but they had some players who basically never lost. But because it's such a small meta, you don't know what that really means. But yeah, so the night before the pairings went up, right as I was going to bed, so that did not help with the falling asleep, and Steve eventually had to yell at me to put my phone away.
It really did not, Conor. I was going to stick your phone up your arse at some point. It
doesn't help him sleep, right?
Yeah.
And they had some really interesting lists too. So they had, the guy I ended up playing to had a Shield Sam Vengers list running some wild crises. He had Mayor Fisk and Spider Portals, which are about as drastically different as you can get. So this was a really interesting matchup for us. And obviously at this point we're 3-0. We're past the we don't expect to do well stage. We're we want to win the event at this point.
Yeah.
Mindset has changed. So I kind of went into it being okay, as usual, Steve and I are probably going to need to win. I'll need to beat their Crises player. He'll need to beat their Fighty player. And I'd kind of pegged, basically they had, we don't think we're going to beat Thanos Guardians. So it's basically, can we get someone into one of the other players' likely their Hydra player or their player that can win that matchup, and that's going to be the big thing. So I end up playing into their Avengers player, and then we get Steve into Brotherhood, I believe.
I play Magneto
Yeah,
again.
Steve
Yeah.
into Brotherhood, which is good for us. JJ gets thrown under the bus for Guardians, and Ricky gets Kingpin, which is actually pretty rough for us too. So going
But
into
Ricky's
the
played
round,
that matchup a lot. He's played Kingpin. Like, that's probably his second most played matchup. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's not dire
But I
for
think,
him.
importantly, they denied the JJ matchup.
Yeah, that's the
Yes,
key
I
thing
was
to
gonna
remember.
say-
This was the only moment of
the
poor
Austrians and
sportsmanship in the
Howard-
entire event.
Yeah.
The only moment of poor sportsmanship that occurred.
yeah, I mean, we should have just forfeit and just walked away at that. So basically, we have JJ, and they have a player named the JJ on Longshanks, and they put the JJ down first. We put JJ into them, and alongside Norbert, and were cowardly, and they dodged the JJ matchup.
Yeah.
For shame.
Ooh.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, those is. Ricky just kind of crushed by Kingpin. It was probably his worst loss of the tournament.
Yeah, it was.
And then I think I'm fair to say Steve and I both had incredibly tight games.
No, I steamrolled the guy I played.
No, or
Yeah,
was this the one you tabled him again?
This was another concession.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Mixing up next round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, next round was real close.
concessions.
This was the second
round
deployment of the Thanos Ghost Rider Corvus Glaive at 19 threat list into a fighting Magneto team, and yeah, not good for Magneto.
No.
Steve won pretty early. I think he lost. If you want to go to your next, I think it's before mine.
We're losing you a little bit, Connor.
Yeah. Basically, I got royally steamrolled very, very quickly because it turns out two Ghost Riders, Bill and Star-Lord, destroys things.
Oh, God. Ugh. It sounds awful.
It also didn't help that I didn't kill Star-Lord on turn one, which I really had the opportunity to do, but dice are dice.
Yeah. All right, so JJ, you get mauled. Ricky gets mauled. Steve wipes out the other guy. Connor, you said it was a really tight game?
Yeah, and I seem to be, and Norbert and I have like an incredibly close game, close games. So this is my closest game of the whole tournament. Basically, we end up on Riot, Spark, and Senators. I haven't played a ton of Senators. Was not super thrilled to get that one, but I was happy with Riots. So we both go 6 wide. I play Peter Parker leadership. He plays Sam leadership. And it was so close. Like, it was at times I started really well. And then top of turn 2, his first activation, he just one-shots Gwen with a 5-die Mystic attack from Voodoo. So Voodoo's like super powered up. So I basically just have to run away from Voodoo the rest of the game. I get Stagger on Logan twice. Both times he clears it with the leadership. Basically, my whole team's like huddled by my back point other than Amazing Spider-Man. It was like some really big swings. I had a web swing in and one-shot healthy Hawkeye with ASM. And then the next turn, ASM got Helios and dazed from full. And then the turn after that, we had like kind of the big swing, which is ASM went first, basically finished off a semi-damaged Iron Man with his spender. He web swung, kicked Iron Man, finished him off, spendered into injured Hawkeye, KO'd him, and then got the free move to both grab a Senator and stand back on the point, which was massive. And then Logan just whiffed a attack after he'd previously just been like destroying the world. And it literally came down to like the last activation of the game. If his Black Widow manages to spike my Black Cat, we go to another turn and he probably wins. But I play fallback, so I get into cover for the second attack, and I live. And it was literally that. It was unbelievably close. It was great, like great use of Sam leadership, great use of both our tactics cards. Like all webbed up was massive. Both our leaderships were massive. His Helios was huge. I played Heroes for Hire, but then died, so didn't actually get to do it. There were so many back and forth bits in that game. It was absolutely awesome, and I just won it 17-15.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
It was really close.
Wow.
I was literally sweating that game.
Yeah, your opponent's saying he also thought it was a very close match and he enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, it was such a fun game. And then basically for the second time in the tournament, we're 2-2, and it's Norbert's last game.
Yeah, I played against the JJ. So who's the imposter? Imposter? I'm not sure, but he was.
We know who the imposter
is. And this was when I lost priority, and I was super glad I lost priority because he and I ended up playing Kingpin, and going last was super critical in this game because I was basically able to kind of protect it was researcher and sword base. I was able to protect the researcher by hiding behind a size 4 truck that was right on my side of the table, essentially. So I was comfortably scoring 4 points to his 2 every turn. It was 4, 8, 12. I'm 4 points away from the bloody win. And I wasn't cheering, absolutely not. It was because at that point he was playing Hydra and was slowly whittling me down. Well, JJ, you could probably tell this better than me because I was so hyper-focused. You actually were understanding what was happening.
Well, I mean, we came over, we looked over at the score, and Norbert was up, like, I think you were up something like 13-8 or something like that. And we were all looking at it. I'm just looking at the score, and then we looked at the board, and I mean, you just had been whittled down, right? I think at the point where we came over, you had 3 characters left, and he had a good chunk of his left. And we were looking at the points, and I mean, Norbert was doing everything he could to prevent the flips, and was sitting on top of the researcher and just controlling it out really, really well. And the last, I mean, I don't remember every move you made, Norbert, but the last couple of rounds, just watching, the score was getting chipped down, but Norbert was still getting the 1 to 2 points. Like, he was just eking closer and closer and closer to the 16.
No.
But the JJ was just gaining ground, and sort of like that last turn where you were sitting there, you had Spider-Gwen and Ulik left.
I had
Gwenpool
and Ulik, yeah,
and Ulik left, and you were sitting there, and you were like so focused. I mean, to your credit, there was a lot of pressure. There were a lot of people watching as well, which just adds to it. You were just so calm and collected, and you were making just really good decisions. Your dice were letting you down a bit, I think is probably fair to say. But I think to your credit, Norbert, you made, and I think Steve, you were standing next to me as well, and a bunch of the Swedish guys. And we're just watching, and it was like, Norbert's like, you're making all the right plays. You are 100% making the right plays. And I think it really came down to, you made that attack with Ulik on Spider-Woman in the last turn, and the dice didn't go your way, because if you'd got the throw trigger, if you'd got anything to remove her from the point, it would have been really tough. And it basically, because that didn't work, he got two attempts on the flip, which meant that he got the points ahead, and got to use the Spider-Woman investigative.
Yeah, I think that was just cherry on the top, really. But,
but it just came down because when the first flip he failed, and that would have put it sort of like changed things differently. But Zemos, he just had enough models on the board to go and just force things to make it very difficult for you.
Yeah.
But as we say, Norbert, and as at the time, you did. I still look at that and just think, I don't think I could have kept my composure the way you did.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I hope Jamie's listening, because he always sees me on my bad day somehow.
No, I like obviously I really felt for you in that, because you were obviously like very emotionally invested in it, and but I thought but not in a sort of salty way, and just like.
No, I was in tears. I was.
Wait, you went through? Yeah, you went Gaza tears in the semi-finals of the, which fair enough. I think.
I'm feeling it now.
They were great guys. I think that's another important thing to say.
Yeah.
They were super clean. They were really convivial. Really sort of really, and sort of that was a very. it was like a really respectfully played semi-final. So we're not trying to there's no
No, no,
part of
no.
us would take anything away from their achievement. They were worthy finalists, and they were really nice, nice bunch of guys.
I want to go to Austria and play in their events, right?
Yeah.
Because we got to play them. I really want to make the
Yeah.
trip and go play with them all again because it was just.
And they were
I'll probably get
pushing for that
destroyed, but
too.
it'd be
No,
fun.
no, we're doing it. We're doing it. Like the fullest I've ever been was in a schnitzel bar in Vienna, and I want to feel that uncomfortably overstuffed with schnitzel again after playing MCP. I felt like a fatted
There's
calf.
some issues there we don't have time to go into, right?
So many issues.
I just
so
want
many
to.
issues.
But yeah, basically, go ahead, Norbert.
I just want to layer on how supportive the team was at that point and how that makes it so special an event as well. We've been building so much camaraderie over the last 6 months, trying to build this thing up, and we celebrated so hard when I won that game against DeLuca, and then I was really like I held it together for the game. It was absolutely fine, but then when the loss hit me, I couldn't hold it together. But everybody gave me hugs and were tapped me on the shoulder and saying, telling me what actually happened, because I really am unfocused. No, I'm so hyper focused. I really don't really understand what happened just before, because I'm just on to the next thing. So it made a big difference to me. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that moment. So thanks, guys.
We love you, dude.
Yeah, thanks. I love you too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, guys, I'm gonna have to hit the hay, I think,
Yeah.
because I'm struggling with the old post event lurgy. But lovely to see you all.
All right, thank you for coming on, Steve. Thanks for hanging out for so long.
Take care. Bye,
All right,
guys.
Bye.
Cheers, bud.
Bye. Okay, let's wrap it up then. We're getting on close to 2 hours. So round 5. This is the big one for Team London B, because you're at 3-1 at this point. Yeah.
We're at 3-1, which is good. I think we're coming into this happy that we got 3-1. We know we're going to come out with a positive rating. This is really going to give us the opportunity to push our schools into the next level and really get into that top band of teams. So we're super happy about that. I think we've learned a lot over the past 4 games about basically making sure our heads are on straight and making sure we're taking all the games seriously and making sure we're actually just trying our best to play the best, not trying to do anything smart or too thinky, just trying to play our own game. So this last game, we basically paired pretty favorably, I think. I got
Who was it? What team was it?
Oh, sorry. It is Sweden Wrecking Crew. So one of the many Swedish teams that are there.
Yep.
Also on a 3-1 record. So we paired pretty favorably, I think. I was happy to get the Wakanda player, Wakanda Thanos. Callum, our Brotherhood player, got X-Force. Maria, you got Criminals. Jamie got their Avengers player, and Will got their Webs player. That's one of the games that we thought wasn't going to go well. Will wasn't feeling confident about that one at all. But we ended up pulling it out, finishing 4-1.
Congrats.
Thank you very much.
There was a funny story with Will's matchup. So obviously it's quite stressful because all we want is 4-1. So I'm going into this quite stressed, and Will's next to me playing Web Warriors, and their opponent Night Queen
Ronya. Yeah.
They said that they're quite new or they haven't played much MCP, and then Will starts telling them how to beat Malekith with webs. And I'm looking at him what are you doing? And then he basically kind of eventually was oh, they haven't played much. They said it was their 10th game or something. And I was oh, okay, never mind. So they picked their team. They picked what Will suggested. And then they go, oh yeah, so I'm actually the second best Guild Ball player in the world. I just haven't played much MCP. And Will's oh, shit. And I think really struggled. But yeah, so it was quite funny. Because I would have thought that you need a lot of MCP experience to be good at this game, but clearly there's people on this call that have proved me completely wrong. I played Steve in London. He was this is my 8th game ever, and he smacked me up in 15 minutes. It was horrible. So that was an interesting thing to discover. I think Will discovered that one the hard way.
What about you, Maria? How was your 5th round?
It was that was an interesting one in terms of matchup because the details of the list matter. because in the previous round, there was a Crimson player with Modok in his list, and I said if they pick Scoundrels and Kingpin and Modok, I can't really win that. I just can't kill stuff enough. But that guy didn't have Modok in his list, so I thought, yeah, I'm more than happy to play into that, and I got priority, so it was my secures as well. And after the end of the game, so it was a relatively close game, but I managed to win. And he said he actually has someone in his group who plays Convocation a lot, and he really missed Modok. Before I could even say it, the reason I was happy to play against him was because he didn't have Modok, and he said, yeah, I really missed Modok in this game. So just kind of a blank thing of Crimson, yay or nay, can be if they have the 1 or 2 models of hard counter, then it's just more. So when I looked at his list, it's like, yeah, I mean, Kingpin can be hard if it's their secures, but if it's then other stuff I can't kill with Mystic attacks, then it's game over for me. So it was not an easy game, but he didn't have the best 10 to deal with Convocation, so it was a bit in my favor, just because he couldn't pick the team he wanted.
Yeah.
Could I also say about my matchup as well?
Please.
In that, I was playing against Wakanda, and this is actually a thing that differentiates mine and Connor's playstyle, and the Connor kind of tends to play this very classic webs of grab stuff and run away. I like to put in some more fighty splashes. I ended up using Squirrel Girl. Agent Venom obviously is affiliated, but we were on a narrow crisis on Gamma against Wakanda, and I basically teched for to have a big fight in the middle, and I ended up winning the fight because of these punchy splashes that don't often come out, but these are exactly the right situations for those to come out in. Obviously, it's just different ways to play the game, but I know my opponent wasn't expecting to see the characters come out and do exactly what they do. I think there are so many different ways to play different affiliations that it's nice to be into that.
That's what international play is all about. You got to get outside your own meta because you get into ruts essentially, and this is where you learn in the crucible of competition. Dun dun dun. All right, Conor. I would say one of the hardest matchups that we had, round 5.
Yeah, and I would say this is the only matchup I felt like we lost the pairing process. And this is the same team that the London B team played in the first round. And I think one of the reasons we both kind of felt like that is these guys, one, had really unique lists that made no sense until they explained them to you after, in which case they made total sense. But also, they just were locked in and really knew what they wanted. So I ended up in a really rough spot where I had to choose between basically playing their guy they were bussing, the substitute player, who basically had never played the list before and went 0-5 on the weekend. Obviously he had to step in last minute, so and given their team kept winning, he was in a very rough spot. So I basically had to choose to play against him, a matchup that I would be confident I could win, but wouldn't really necessarily be what the team needs. Or I had to play their Wakanda Spider Foes player, who had somewhat kind of neutral secures and extracts. They weren't mine, but they also weren't super fighty ones. But I think because I'd beaten Wakanda earlier and I felt quite good about Wakanda, I just didn't really understand his list very well. And we'll get to that when we talk about the game. But I was going to say, that was Tommaso was an unbelievable player. One of the best players I've played in my entire time of Marvel. Yep. And his list was really interesting. I spent quite a lot of time talking to him about it after. And Steve, basically, I'll cover for him a bit here as well, got paired into Giacomo, who had a Cyclops,
Giacomo,
X-Men, and Inhumans list, which he'd run Inhumans every round up till this point, and then dropped a very anti-CGR list into Steve, where he was running Cyclops to fuel Jean Grey. I don't remember exactly the rest of the list, but Steve basically said if he had played his Thanos CGR Corvus list, he thinks he would have lost. But he literally didn't play CGR because he was sick of playing them. So he ran the 4-wide list with Corvus Proxima and Zemo instead, which ended up being really good for him. And he won a narrow victory. And then basically my game I'll talk about briefly because this is my one loss of the tournament. And I'm still debating what I could have done differently.
Yeah.
But I played a pretty standard Peter Parker Webb's plan of Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, Miles, Gwen, Wong. And he ended up playing Spider Foes because he didn't have Cryo with Okoye and Ancient One. And Ancient One was just a terror. She absolutely
can
MVP
be.
of the game.
Absolutely.
Her spender just like destroys Web Warriors. And my opponent outplayed me early by going like very aggressive. And I got hit really bad by the turn 2 Spider Infected, which moved ASM out of healing range from Wong, which was just brutal. And basically what ended up happening is I misjudged a couple distances and I almost brought it back into being a close game with my all webbed up turn, but Miles failed to daze Ancient One. And then Ancient One just basically like teleported in and obliterated injured ASM, and that was the game.
Oh.
My opponent was so much more prepared for the matchup. Turns out I hadn't noticed this at the time, but he'd actually beaten Webbs twice on the previous day, so was like very ready for it. But I just couldn't not play him because if I take their 0-4 player and beat him, then all our other matchups are way harder. And I basically put myself in the situation where I'm like, I'm just gonna have to beat a really good player. And I got a crisis flip for it. But he's a great player, got outplayed, and then my all webbed up turn didn't playing I needed it to. So I was crushed after this, especially given I was like happy with the matchups, but we did win 2 other games, and this is the only round I didn't win. I really felt like if I had won this, our team goes 4-1 and might have even snuck on the podium.
Yeah.
So much like Norbert in the previous round, I was like much more crushed than I would have been at a singles event.
Yeah.
Because obviously you're like, we've got a game plan. The rest of the game plan except me worked. And much like with Norbert, when you lose those 2-3 matches, it just hurts so much more than if you get crushed.
Yes, totally get it, man. JJ, how was your match?
Look, I mean, I ended up playing into Cabal and Malekith, and as Conor mentioned, I was playing against the poor Frenchman that got subbed in the Italian
so
team.
You were driving the bus over the guy.
Yeah, well, but nearly not, right? Because like I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, and his list is Web Warriors and Cabal, and I'm like, well, what do I put down? Like, because I don't know which one he's going to go for. This guy does, he said, like, I haven't really used this list before. I don't, this is not how I normally play the game. And I looked at our table, and we had a bunch of like just a insane amount of terrain on it, and I'm like, this kind of feels more like a Web's table. So I took a list that I was like would deal with webs and potentially like and sort of had wide secures and all the rest of it. And I'm just like, I just kind of need to be able to take more so I can destroy as much terrain as possible so they can't hide anywhere. And if he does go webs, then I deal with that. But also more into Malekith, if that's coming, isn't a terrible life decision either. But I played more towards that I would have to deal with webs than I would have to deal with Malekith and Cabal. And then he put down Red Skull and Malekith and Zemo. I was just looking at it going, this doesn't go well for me. This is like if he gets in on all of this. And he had Logan as well, which I think he just hadn't really played against Convocation to know that Logan is just
he gets
poor choice to that matchup.
Maria is salivating.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
I mean, when he did all of this and he put down Logan, I'm like kill him pretty easily. The rest,
I've never played against Logan.
Yeah, well, there's a reason for that.
There's a reason.
Yep.
JJ, I want to mention to you, he came up to me afterwards and he said he had a rough weekend of it for the reasons we talked about, but he said your game was one of the ones he felt closest in, and so he felt it was like a real match, and so he really enjoyed it.
It was super fun, and Malekith is difficult. Even post the nerf, he's a lot to deal with, and he takes a lot of resource to manage. And when when you have to put that much into it. I mean, I got the double black tongue off on him and like got him away. And then on the charge turn had Shush up and like denied that as well. But there was just so much resource in managing Malekith that it meant that it kept it close, because I managed to get rid of Zima relatively early, managed to get rid of Logan, and again the Grunts and Red Skull were just holding the secures and an extract, and Red Skull's not switching his armor off the Mystic Defense, and that means I can't throw anything at him either. So I was just like, I'm not going to bother killing him, right? Like that's kind of a waste of time. But yeah, no, like super nice guy. I really felt for him, because I felt like if he maybe had the list that he wanted to have,
of course,
even though he was, he would have been in a much better place. But I mean, at least he was getting in my mind, because he hadn't used Malekith before. By the 5th round, he'd been using the list enough that he got a couple of reps in, right? And so his positioning was really good. It was just a really good fun game.
Cool.
Excellent.
So go ahead, Angus.
I played him in the first round as well. Right. And he said he paired specifically into me so that he could see how webs play. So I guess it's just kind of back to what you said, like some learning games, right? You don't have to try and win the game to get stuff out of it.
Yep.
I entered the match. Conor threw me into one of the best players on the earth, who was playing CGR Guardians, and we drew demons and researcher. So fuck me very much.
And the rest is history.
Oh, it was so salty. I finally broke down, Jamie.
Yeah, that was wrong.
The salt mine was well and truly open at the end. At the end, I held it together, but at the end, I had a few choice words about that.
It's also quite funny, because I put Norbert and JJ into their newer player, I believe, and it was like whichever one of them didn't get the new player, who was very inexperienced, was going to get CGR Guardians. It was just like, either you'll have like a pretty chill game against a guy still learning, or you get CGR Guardians with like a TTS Cuts player.
All right, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the things. I'd like to just wrap up a bit on what you took away from the event that you would like to tell somebody who's only on the fence about coming. And I'd like to start with Jamie, because he's been a big, really looking forward to this event and preparing himself. And you've never even played war games before you got into MCP.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not totally true. I was terrified. I wasn't looking forward to it. I was practicing so I didn't embarrass myself. I would say someone that's on the fence. I'm gonna come at this from someone who has never done it before. This is my first war game, my first international event. I would say if you're a beginner, you should be looking at team events. You should definitely be looking at an event like this. It's great. Like was said before, if your meta's small, you've got just as much chance of coming and winning, having a great time. And also the way the cuts work, you lose your first 2 rounds, and then you might get some more fun close match games, for the rest of the weekend. You'll have a great time, which I was kind of hoping for when we lost in round 1. Didn't quite get it, but so I think team events are the best way to play this game, especially if you're a bit worried about it, like I was. I had the only kind of negative score on our team, and still had a great time because your teammates are winning around you. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think this is the way to play. If you're on the fence, if you're new, you should be doing this more than you should be going to solo tournaments. To be honest, do that too. But this is a much friendlier, much lighter, beginner friendly way to have fun, I think, with the game.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Maria, if you don't mind me saying, what would you say to some ladies who might be interested in coming, or people maybe who just feel a little outside of the white male dominated kind of hobby that we have?
Yeah, I think what Jamie said, just go for it, because I made some of my best friends in wargaming, of them male, but it doesn't really make a difference, and it's not a very toxic masculine environment, wargaming, at least not the skirmish war games we play. So it's an absolutely lovely place to go and really get to know people, become friends, and hang out. And and as Jamie said, being part of a team, if you lose but the team wins, it's a much better feeling than if you go to a tournament, your first tournament, and you just keep losing. That's really frustrating.
Yeah.
If you keep losing, but you do it for the team because you were thrown under the bus, at least you contributed to the team's win.
Yeah.
So that's
absolutely
makes it more fun.
Good. I'm glad you feel that way, and would encourage other people like yourself to come, because we could use the diversity a lot. Okay, Angus, why don't you wrap up for London B team? How did you feel as captain then at the end of this tournament?
It's interesting as captain. I think more than just the responsibility of guiding a team to victory or defeat or completion, at least, of a tournament. I think.
Yeah, you got people there to play all 5 games, so that's a win.
Yeah. Yeah,
which was almost didn't happen.
I think, like from a captain's perspective, I think it's worth knowing that if you were, for example, to be a first-time captain, it's more important that you look after your players than it is you look after the team win-loss. Like that's not the thing. You don't get in the car on the way home with your win-loss. You get in the car on the way home with your teammates. Also, the highs are higher at team tournaments and the lows are not as low because you've got your teammates with you at both ends, which makes it a more fun experience. But I think we look after each other as a team and as a community, and that really comes through in the team events.
Yeah, well said. JJ.
I mean, I've been to a fair few international and like WTC style events, and the thing that's great is, I mean, like I think Norbert, you posted on the first day like a photo of us as a team basically, and the immediate responses from people I haven't seen from other WTCs and other game systems around the world. Like all my mates back in Australia that have been to WTCs and know Norbert from War Machine and places like that I've played, you know, that I grew up playing games with all over Australia and doing stuff there, from Guild Ball WTCs and other things. That just, you know, we're very lucky that our hobby has such an incredible community, not just like within the UK and London, in which we all kind of operate at the moment, but just internationally. Norbert, you mentioned at the beginning, like you go to these events and you make friends, not just with your team, but like with people, and then there are people like I'm wearing Adam's shirt from Sweden, and you know I met Adam playing Guild Ball many years ago, and he ended up when I was playing World Champs and when it was being held in Chicago, he ended up coming to the Last Chance qualifiers as a European to Chicago, hung out with me for like a week in Chicago. We went around sightseeing and doing stuff because he just wanted to be a part of it and be part of like the very small. I think it was 2 or 3 of us that went over from Europe basically for the World Champs, and we'd never got to trade shirts before, and we did it this WTC
nice.
6 years later, right? Like,
wow.
It's just you just make really good friends. So you know, for me, it's like go get involved. You're going to meet people that you probably aren't going to get a chance to meet otherwise, right? And then you keep going, and then you just keep seeing them, and it's just a really good, fun way to be a part of a really amazing community.
Awesome. That's so great, JJ. That's an amazing story too. It's amazing that you traded shirts 6 years later. That's fantastic. Conor, whose shirt do you have, and why do you have that shirt?
So I'm actually not sure whose shirt I have, because how it happened is basically one of the Toms of Finland guys came up to me like right after that last round had ended, and as I said, I was pretty devastated by the loss. This wasn't like inappropriately right after, but it was like I was still kind of going over it in my head. And he was like, hey, I really wanted one of the reclaimed Colonial jerseys. And I think Steve, JJ, and Ricky had already traded theirs at this point.
Yeah.
So I think I was the only one left. And then basically he was like, do you want to trade shirts? And like, well, stand up. This shirt is awesome.
Yeah, look at that. Sentinel. It's amazing.
And it's also got like an overweight Spider-Man on the back, which really speaks to me on a personal level. And I was just like, he's like, it's really kind of weird material because it's basically like gym spandex type. It's like, it's not even that the shirt's too small. It's that it's just like
it's meant to be
like
form-fitting.
Yeah, it's very form-fitting.
Hubba.
It's much more flattering when I'm like on cut off here. As I am on this call. But yeah, he was just so keen to get one of our jerseys
nice.
That I just was like, yeah, all right. Like he was just so keen. I was like,
That's
sure.
Nice.
So if you're in the chat, I never did get your name, so please do feel free to let me know.
Cool. All right.
But yeah, I think the other thing I'd say that's kind of been said before, but kind of just want to reiterate is we're part of like an incredible international community. And, you know, JJ and I are friends with like loads of these guys from Guild Ball and Maria as well. And there's like, the Chicago guys, none of them made it out this time because of second wind being on the same weekend. But I've met and hung out with those guys at previous WTCs. I spend a lot of time in like the various Discords because I just love talking strategy and tactics and just discussing the game in general.
Just a little.
And so I know, right? And notoriously sidetrack the X-Men chat off of X-Men all the time in the main Discord. But basically, all these guys that I've been talking to, for months and months, like I've been playing for just over a year now. So like DeLuca and Deaton, I've talked to a bunch of European players like Collar, as well as all the guys I've known from Guild Ball. You spend so much time talking to these guys online that you just really don't even really know like what they look like half the time. And another cool one is Maria's X-Men opponent on the England Dragons is someone I have spent quite a bit of time online talking to. But we didn't meet through Marvel. We actually met through my Canadian friend's video game podcast and then started playing TTS together because we both play Marvel.
Huh.
And I'd never seen what he looked like until WTC. So we met and hung out a bit. And it was just like, you get all these amazing opportunities to hang out with the people. And that's really what I got to stress is it's about the people. Like, it's just such a fun event. It's by far the best event in gaming. And I've played a lot of different tournaments.
Excellent. Great final words. Thank you to all my guests.
I want to. Sorry, I'm going to hijack. I'm in charge now, no, but I'm going to say some more final words.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a massive thank you is owed to Norbert for building, especially the London scene. I don't have this experience of wargaming like everyone's talking about. I don't know all these people, and I didn't know anyone going into this. And the only reason I play this game is because Norbert does such a good job at looking after London and making sure that we have a scene here. I genuinely think if you weren't bothering, we wouldn't have a scene. I think there'd be 2 or 3 people playing every week. And yeah, I ended up going to WTC, and Nations with like 5 friends that I never would have known if it wasn't for you, Norbert. Your games at WTC were the only games I cared about, mostly to see if your salt was in check, but also because I want you to do well. But yeah, just a big thank you. I wouldn't be playing this game if it wasn't for you, Norbert. I wouldn't know or like anyone here.
And Jamie, like building on that, I think Norbert, from the rest of your team, the goodwill that we received from everyone at the event, because you were part of our team. I mean, no one really likes a loud Canadian and an obnoxious Australian at the best of times.
How rare it is people cheer for me? It never happened. Ever. It was so weird to be on a team people wanted to win.
Yeah, that's a really unfamiliar feeling because we're often like just like make sure those guys don't, right? No, but I mean, I think Norbert, on behalf of our team, and I think the rest of the community, and just to echo what Jamie's been saying, within the London meta and everything here, but then in the international community, you've really shaped this game and this community in a really positive way with everything you do and everything you put into it. And it was really special for us to be on the receiving end of the love that the community has for you.
That's I'm overwhelmed, honestly. All right, we're gonna end this.
I can save you. Wait, I can save you with my dumb analogies. I'm trying to make stick. Norbert is the Stan Lee of MCP.
Yeah,
I'll take that. I'll take that. Well, thanks, guys. Seriously. Thanks so much. It was a really fantastic event, and I really appreciate all the love and everybody who was at the event as well, who came up to me, and also Huggy Bear too, who's my partner on these sort of things. And a big shout out to Gil Sarepi, who's the head TO and event organizer, and took a big risk on making this happen, and he did a great job even with a biblical storm happening around us. It was just nuts. So thank you to my guests from the London B team. Fantastic 4-1. I hope to see you do well in future events, and also to my teammates who did a fantastic job as well with our result. It was a thrill, and it was the journey as much as was the actual event itself that was so special. Thanks everyone for chatting with us tonight and watching. I hope anybody who's watching this, who's new to the game or again thinking about coming to the game, they can really get energized from this, because the point is to help you understand just how great it is and something that you should try to plan to be part of if you can. All right. Okay, everybody, have a good night, and we hope to see you soon. Bye.
See you next year.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.